Now, this is case number 129 on the calendar in the matter of Herzig versus Mora. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Everybody have seats.
Mr. Herzig, you were retained by Mr. and Mrs. Mora, according to your complaint, to be the DJ at their son's bar mitzvah.
Correct.
They gave you a $500 deposit.
Correct.
The balance due of $650. According to your complaint, you went to the bar mitzvah, you performed your service, the Moras gave you a check for $650.
Correct.
And then they stopped payment on the check.
Yes, ma'am.
You want your money.
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Mora say that your services were not up to standard, that they feel as if they didn't get what they had contracted for, that you ruined their son's bar mitzvah. In addition to ruining their son's bar mitzvah, you slandered and defamed them by writing letters to the temple, by walking around with placards outside. I don't know what you said. And they're suing you for a refund of their $500 deposit, as well as another $4,500 for their aggravation.
Okay.
Correct. Sure. Okay. Where was the bar mitzvah?
Desert Shores Community Center, the same location that my young witness had his bar mitzvah.
Okay. And how many people did you have at the bar mitzvah?
Approximately 100.
When did you retain Mr. Herzig?
Approximately 2 months before.
Okay.
2 to 3 months before the event.
Do you have the contract?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd
It
like
was
to see it,
actually December 16th, 2004.
And when was the bar mitzvah?
January 30th, 2005.
Okay. Would you show this to Mr. and Mrs. Moore and ask them whether they recognize signature on that and whose signature it was on the contract?
Yep, I have the same one in my...
Yes.
Okay, so that's the contract.
Yes.
No. And you showed up?
Absolutely. Ready to do a job.
Showed up, and how many hours were you there?
I arrived at 4 o'clock p.m. Set up time from 4 o'clock to 5:30. At 5:30, start music.
And when did you finish?
9:30.
Between 5:30 and 9:30, did anyone approach you and indicate that they were dissatisfied with what was going on?
Ms. Moore came up and said, "I'm unhappy the music being played right now." It was during the dinner time. And I said, "No problem, we'll promptly change it," which we did.
So other than that one time that Mrs. Moore came up to you during the course of the evening, did either of them come up and say that there was anything wrong with what you were doing?
Later on at about 8:40, maybe 9 o'clock, Ms. Moore came up and asked, she had given me originally that evening 4 additional notes to perform and to say, as I remember, something about one of them being guest had graduated from college. But there were a couple, how about those announcements? And I said, we've already made the announcements. I didn't know if she was in the room.
Can I add to that?
I'm going to get to you in a second. Okay. When did you get your check for $650?
After we put the equipment back into the van, we sat down at the table with Ms. Moore, and we requested our check, and we started just kibitzing a little about the evening, and that was it.
She gave you the check?
Yes, ma'am. Wrote the check right then and there.
Did she say at that point anything to you about your service that evening?
Word zero, which meant...
Okay. Yeah. Don't tell me what he's going to tell me.
Okay.
You say word zero.
Word zero.
Okay, who's going to speak?
I'd like to say.
Okay.
Okay. When I originally hired Alan to be my DJ, I had interviewed a few DJs. And one mentioned that he was going to have a disco ball for lighting, which, you know, I would like for my son to have something special. And he said, "Oh, that's outdated. I have sophisticating lighting. I have speakers with that blink, and I have, you know," and I was excited because I thought, wow, I'm going to have that. That was not at the party. That's what initially, after I watched the tape of the bar mitzvah, or it was even before then, I said to my husband, "Was there lighting?" And there was no lighting. The montage that he made for me, that he was professionally supposed to do.
I don't know what. Could you stop
A
hitting the
montage.
table?
I'm sorry.
At the table.
The montage of
A video montage that he supplied a projection screen that he told me he was going to add magic to. I scanned all the pictures, at home on my computer and handed him a disc. He just added music to it, and he told me he was going to spin the pictures and do his magic to my pictures. And I have a copy of that here that I'd like you to see, that within the first 4 pictures there was a slag in between the pictures. As a professional, after making a tape of this sort, he should have viewed it before he showed it to my guests. There was a slag, and everybody thought the tape was over after the first 4 pictures.
The sound system was inadequate. We had music cues for people as they were to come out and be introduced that never went off. We didn't know he was going to have a 12-year-old child as his DJ, training
told me he
him
was gonna have an
at our
assistant.
bar mitzvah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He said he would bring an assistant. We didn't know it would be a young child that he would be given on-the-job training during our
he
affair.
trained his son throughout the... I
So
have it on tape also.
that was quite embarrassing for us, and our guests couldn't believe it. We had certain music that he left at
my
home.
My father was an entertainer who had passed, and I wanted my family to hear my father's music while we're eating. I brought the tape. He didn't even bring it to the bar mitzvah. He had to call his wife to bring the tape to the bar mitzvah.
Did she bring it?
She brought it, but it was stressful for me.
Now you've told me the story.
Some of it.
Shh. Now you've told me the story, and now I'd like to know why you gave him a check for $650 at the end of the evening.
My husband wrote
First of all, he's not telling the truth. I'm the one that gave him the check, not my wife.
I don't care who gave me the check. You gave him the check.
He came over. He said, it's time to settle up. We still had guests around. I didn't want to cause a scene. It was a very big day, a lot of excitement. Took out my checkbook. I wrote him the check just to get it over with. And we went home and discussed it, and we got several complaints from guests. People called us. They emailed us. They told us the next day or two how awful things were.
I want to see those emails. I want, just a second, listen to me very carefully, Mr. Mora. I want to see the emails from your guests telling you how awful the bar mitzvah was.
I have.
Okay.
I'd like to see them.
Okay.
You have those letters?
Those are some letters, but I want her to read this
I want to see a letter.
I'll give it to them.
I just want to see an email. Oh, this is terrible. This is not what I want.
Okay.
This is not what I want. And this is not what I want. And this is not what I want. Did you understand English? English is, I want to see emails that your guests sent to you the day after the bar mitzvah telling you how horrible the bar mitzvah was. These are letters.
Okay.
These are letters 6 months later that you solicited from people saying, I was present at the Mora bar mitzvah and would like to make some comments about what I observed.
Well, she just printed it out that day.
Listen to me, madam. On your best day, you're not as smart as I am on my worst day.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Tell me one Bubba Mice, I find everything else that you say suspect. So that's a grandma story.
Oh, I know the Bubba Mice.
That's a Bubba Mice, a grandma story. It means it's an untruth.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Alan Herzig says former client Bonnie Moore owes for his DJ services. Bonnie claims Alan did a poor job. She is countersuing for defamation of character.
What I want to see is a guest at a bar mitzvah, because I've been to more bar mitzvahs in my day than you have, and I've made more.
Okay.
I have never had a guest that wrote me a letter or sent me an email telling me how horrible the function was because of the DJ. So when you said to me, I got emails the next day telling me how horrible the function was,
I didn't say
that's not true. That's not true.
Don't argue with him.
No guest at a Jewish bar mitzvah tells their host and hostess what a terrible time they had. Now, solicited, you can get letters from people telling you that they thought that the DJ was awful. Call a guest and say, I'm going to court, and I want you to tell me, or I'm having a discussion or a dispute with it. Put your hand down. You tell me one Bubba Misa. You know what that means?
Yes.
Good. You tell me one Bubba Misa, I find everything else that you say suspect. So that's a grandma story.
Oh, I know the Bubba Mice.
That's a Bubba Mice, a grandma story. It means it's an untruth. It means what grandmas tell when they tend to fabricate. So nobody wrote you the next day or 2 days later or 3 days later what a terrible time they had at your son's bar mitzvah because of the music.
Your Honor, excuse me.
Don't speak to me yet.
Okay.
So the answer to the question is, you gave him a check the day of the bar mitzvah because you didn't want to create a scene at the bar mitzvah. And then you were talking amongst yourselves. Not because you got emails from anybody the next day, because that's a lie, or the day after that, and you decided to stop payment on the check, right?
Right.
Now, after you stopped payment on the check, Mr. Herzig called you.
Right.
When you called him, what did Mr. Mora tell you?
My wife was unhappy with your performance.
And?
And we are not paying you, and we don't want to hear from you again. We've dusted our hands of you.
Was that the end of the conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any subsequent conversation with him?
I tried to.
So what did you do, Mr. Herzig? Because that's the second part of their complaint for which they want $4,500.
I sent them eventually I sent them an email. I left messages. I'm
not talking about what you sent to them. They are complaining that you slandered them.
I sent them an email. That was the slander.
He wrote letters to all the religious leaders in the community with this case.
You have copies
do.
of the letters?
And
just a second. Do you have copies of the letters that he sent?
I have one copy with CC's underneath.
Fine. I'd like to see it.
This was registered to me.
Okay.
He also sent a letter to the owner of the Israelite, which is the Jewish paper here in Las Vegas. I have a letter also from...
He carried a picket sign in front of our school,
And
religious
never-
school.
Just a second.
Okay.
Is this what you're talking about? This.
He sent that whole package.
Just a second.
Yes.
This says.
He sent that to Mike, the owner.
Okay. And it says, how about a headline like Bonnie and Paul Morris stiffed their MC DJ?
Yes.
Well, that's what you did.
Okay.
That's what you did.
Okay.
You wrote
I
him a
don't think
check.
that he should be
Listen to me.
telling
You wrote him a check.
the newspaper that.
You listen to me. You wrote him a check, and then you stopped payment on the check. That means he got stiffed.
Disc jockey Alan Herzig claims client Bonnie Moore owes for services rendered. Bonnie is countersuing, claiming Alan slandered her.
Mr. Herzig says in this letter that he spent substantial time in your house helping you get the pictures scanned. Is that true?
He agreed that I told him I just bought the scanner. He agreed to come over and
So
do that.
it's-
But he just showed me how to do it.
Just
I
a
already
second.
knew. Go ahead.
Listen to me. The answer is he came over to your house, which is not contained in this contract, to help you scan the pictures
Well, I
into a
scanned them all.
scanner. Not contained in here. He did it because he was being...
Yes, he was. Very nice to do that. Although his price
Fine.
was outrageous to begin with anyway.
Mrs. Herzog, that's an untruth. He was charging you $1,150 to perform at your event, which included this montage of pictures. And if you're telling me that that's an outrageous price, you should have hired somebody else. I'm telling you it's not an outrageous price.
Okay. Well-
okay. And I'm still trying to find slander worth slander at all.
I don't think any of my business should be brought to the attention of my four rabbis he sent it to in the newspaper.
But listen, what you think is one thing. He could have been a nice person and not sent it to anybody else. But he chose not to do that. That's not actionable.
Going to the school at checkout time with a poster that says I owe him money, and I have a letter here from the receptionist.
Listen to me.
Did you want to
He
read
has a
that?
right. I'm not looking at a letter. He has a right to do that. You do owe him money. That's not libelous. That's something that's untrue. You do owe him money.
Okay. I
if you
believe
owed
he did
him-
a job. I think it was inferior.
Just a second. Then you don't use him again. Let us say that you go out for a meal, Mrs. Mora, with your husband and your family, and you go to a new restaurant, and you eat at the restaurant, you finish everything on your plate, and you get back in your car that evening, and you say, you know, they advertised this restaurant as having the best ribs in town. And the truth is, I don't like those ribs as well as I like the rib guy at the end of the street. So I played by credit card, and I'm going to cancel my credit card, despite the fact that I ate the ribs, paid the bill, and I didn't like the way the waiter spoke to me, so I'm going to cancel that charge on my credit card. You think you'd get very far, Mrs. Mora? Zero. So if you don't like the restaurant, the next time you're going out for dinner, go someplace else. It's not as if Mr. Herzig didn't show up. It's not as if you got somebody else to play instead of him. You allowed him to start at 5:30, finish at 9:30. I am absolutely 100% positive that people clapped to the music, danced if they danced to the music.
They didn't.
Were on the dance floor. Maybe not everybody. Some people were on the dance floor during the course of the event. In any event, you used his services. You ate his ribs. When you stopped payment on his check, you had no right to do that. You stiffed him. You stole his money. And then you said, you don't like it? Sue me. Which is what he's doing. He wanted to embarrass you. I assume he embarrassed you. That's too bad. What he was saying is true. He's allowed to embarrass you. You have anything else you want to say?
Yes, how about he promised me the lighting system, the sound system was bad. I have on tape.
No, madam, I want you to take a look at your contract. And I want you to show me in your contract where it's in the contract.
No, it's...
Listen to me. That's what you are bound by.
Okay.
The four corners of the contract. I want you to show me, Miss Mora, in the contract where it says that he's going to supply you with a lighting system.
Well, how about the sound system here?
Listen to me. I said, show me in the contract, in the four corners of the contract, where he says he's going to supply you with a lighting system.
That was my mistake, not having him write it, I guess.
You're absolutely right. What kind of business are you in, sir?
Hotel.
What kind of business in the hotel?
Casino.
What do you do in the casino?
I'm a department manager.
Okay. You know about contracts?
A little bit.
Good. Well, you have to explain that to your wife, sir. Anything that's within the four corners of the contract, or what courts consider if you sue him. If you said to me he didn't show up until 7 o'clock, and I find that he didn't show up until 7 o'clock, that means he gets docked. The fact that you didn't like the ribs is, as we say in French, bad. Next time, do you have another bar mitzvah that you're planning? Don't use Mr. Herzig. He doesn't want you to use him. They owe you $650.
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff and your counterclaims dismissed. That's all.
Thank you.
What is the excuse? You may step out. Now, this is case number 65 on the calendar, the matter of Dady versus Dickerson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Miss Dady, where did you meet Mr. Dickerson?
At a club
When?
around Thanksgiving time of 2000,
When did two of you start to date?
shortly thereafter.
Did you ever live together?
Yes.
When?
That's a lie, Your Honor. She wanted me to live with her.
When?
He lived with me the first time he moved in. I had had a really bad truck accident, and I was in a cast, had 3 pins in my right wrist. So he moved in with me to help take care of me.
When?
In January of 2000.
No, that was 2001.
Excuse me, 2001, he's correct.
For about 3 weeks.
That's not living with you, that's staying with you to help you.
Correct.
Did you ever live together in an apartment that you shared where you paid joint rent?
We lived together, correct, but
I was never
always,
on the lease with her, Your Honor.
but I-
Mr. Dickerson, listen to me, sir.
She's lying.
Mr. Dickerson, I'm going to say this one more time, sir. I ask questions, you answer questions. If you choose to talk to each other and shout at each other, then you can do that outside. Inside, I run a very orderly, organized place. You got it?
Got it.
Good. Got what question I asked? Remember, such a lecture. You got my question. I can always backtrack. Okay. 2001, in January of 2001, he stayed with you for 3 weeks. Did you ever share an apartment together, even if you paid the rent?
Excuse me, he didn't live with me for 3 weeks. It was approximately 3 to 4 months. It was about 3 weeks after we had met that he moved in.
Okay, so he was helping you out for 3 or 4 months.
Correct. And all of his belongings were there, I mean clothing-wise.
Okay, then he moved out.
I asked
3 or
him
4
to.
months, you asked him to move out.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you ask him to move out?
Well, I came home from a business trip to find a cute little blonde sitting on my couch, which...
Okay, so that was in 2001.
Yes, ma'am.
And he moved out, but that didn't end the relationship because according to your complaint, the first loan you made to him was in 2003.
No, ma'am. The first loan that I made to him was in April of 2001, which was when he had asked me to lend him $440.
Miss Dady, give me the dates of the loans that you claim Mr. Dickerson made.
Okay, the first one was to pay
2001, $400. To pay for what?
$440 to pay probation fees so he wouldn't have to go to jail the next morning.
Okay. What's next?
Then we broke up, and then he called me again two years later. Said that he had been born again, he'd done his probation, he had gone to rehab. In 2004 is when I loaned him the $900. He was having to go to work about 30 miles from our residence, and he was driving my BMW, and I didn't want him driving it any longer, so he had said that he had this car that he needed to get fixed, so could I give him the $900 to get it fixed, which I agreed upon.
Okay, what's next?
Then about 3 weeks later, he had gone for an interview at a pretty prestigious dealership and supposedly supposed to be offered a general manager job, which was supposed to be paying him netting $10,000 to $12,000 a month. Well, he wanted to have nice clothes and he wanted to have a nice car. And besides that, he didn't go and pick the Volvo up. Well, about 2 weeks later.
What do you mean he didn't go pick the Volvo up? I don't understand what
because it wasn't fixed, but I was unaware of that. So
you gave him $900 to fix a car and he never went and got the car?
Correct. So I went to the place that he had left it at and actually talked to the owner. And the owner told me that he had in fact, called his sister and left several messages in
Galveston. Okay, but he never went to pick up the car.
Correct.
So he had your $900 and they had his old car.
Exactly.
Got it. So then he needed nice clothes.
He needed some nice clothes and then a nice car. So it was our agreement that he was going to pay for the clothes. I was going to give him $1,800 for a down payment on a Camry.
So did you do that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
So you gave him $1,800?
Yes, I did.
When was that?
The $900 was on 129 and the $1,800 was on 210.
What's next?
Then on Valentine's Day, he had been kind of whining about needing a cell phone because he has to make all these business calls and everything.
Whatever. You got him a cell phone.
Yes, ma'am. Our agreement was that I pay for the phone as a gift to him, and then he's going to pay the deposit and then be responsible for the monthly bills.
Well, so you were buying him that as a gift?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm not suing for that. But the $125 deposit, which I had to pay that day in order to get the phone activated, I paid.
What else?
Then he just did not pay the cell phone bills. What had actually happened...
So they, just a minute, so they didn't pay the cell phone bills, they turned off the cell phone, and what happened? You lost your deposit?
No, actually what ended up happening is I had the phone activated on the 15th of February.
Had it turned off on the 17th.
I had it turned off on the 26th.
You turned it off, so what happened?
Yes, ma'am. He somehow called Sprint and had the phone turned back on because I understood he was making drug calls. And I know nothing about any of that. I've never even seen one, let alone done one.
I don't know what else you want
Well,
with regard to the cell phone. Just tell me what you're suing for with regard to the cell phone.
The two monthly bills, the February and the March bill, that he's responsible for.
Well, why is it on your bill?
It's not. He has a separate billing.
So?
That indicates his phone. Our agreement was that he was going to be responsible for the monthly bills.
Just a second. He was going to be responsible, but you put it on your account.
Correct.
It's amazing to me. I can understand it when somebody is, 21 years old and stupid, but you're a grown woman.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Mr. Dickerson, now I'll hear you, sir. She wants all this money from you.
Okay, Your Honor, all this is she wanted me to stay there.
Listen to me. Just start with the probation fees.
She gave me the money for the probation fees. I went down and paid, came back. A couple of months later, I decided to move out on my own because I wasn't ready for that type of relationship, and she never did understand that. And she would always try to buy me and control me with that way. That's why she turned off the cell phone 3 days later after she got it.
Don't interrupt him.
That's why she turned off.
Let's get to the $900 she gave you to fix you a Volvo.
And I bought the Volvo.
You bought the Volvo?
Yes, I did.
Well, I understand that, but then it broke down, and you said you needed to have it fixed.
The car's still running.
No.
My cousin's still using it.
No.
Don't
I'm sorry.
But then she gave you another $1,800 for Camry.
Now, think about this, Your Honor.
No. I'm just asking you.
Okay.
What was the $1,800 for?
Because she wanted me to look good.
Drugs.
Shh. Miss...
I'm sorry.
What I can...
Don't say you're sorry again, because I'm going to throw you out.
If I owed you all this money, why would you continue to loan me money if I owed it to you?
You're absolutely right, Mr. Dickerson. That's the only smart thing you just said to me. That's my question. Why would an intelligent, mature woman keep giving you money when starting in 2001 you never paid her a dime back, and she just kept giving you money and giving you money and giving you money? And I have to wonder whether there was ever a legitimate expectation that you were going to get any of this money back.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Do you think that she's bothering you?
Yes.
And later today,
They wouldn't let me do traffic school if you already did it in the last 18 months.
And you had done it in the last 18 months?
Yeah.
Because you had another speeding ticket?
You know, because I had my accident.
Sounds to me like you're an accident looking to happen.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Janet Dady says ex-boyfriend Jimmy Dickinson owes for 2 car loans and a cell phone. Jimmy says Janet was trying to control him with money.
It would seem to me that a woman like you would know after 4 years that he's a taker. And any money that you give to him is like throwing money down the sewer. You're never going to get it back.
May I say something?
Sure.
Judge Judy, when we were only together, and he gave me the $440, then we broke up. I told him to leave because of his behavior and because he never ever went to work.
Miss Dady, you're telling me that he never worked. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
That he couldn't hold a job, a continuous job, probably because he had a drug problem?
Yes, ma'am.
You picked him.
2 years later, after he had convinced me that he had in fact changed, I thought I would give him a second chance.
You wanted to give him a second chance. So within the first month, he needs $900. Just think of what you did. You gave him $900 because the goodness of you say he's clean, he's sober, he's everything else, right? We're going to give him $900 so we can get his car out of the shop. And then you don't see the car. And then according to you, you went down to the shop and they said he never came to pick it up. So he's got you $900. What do? You give him another $1,800.
The only reason I gave him the additional $1,800, Your Honor, is because he had gone to an interview. He was supposedly supposed to be hired as the new used car manager, netting $10,000 to $12,000
And who told you that?
a month. Him.
I rest, if I were a lawyer, I would say I rest my case. Miss Dady, I hate it when women are taken advantage of. But I hate it worse when women act stupid and allow themselves to be taken advantage of. Now let me hear about your counterclaim in 30 seconds or less.
The reason I have so many jobs, Your Honor, because she would show up on my job at any time doing donuts in the parking lot, demanding to see me.
I don't want to hear you.
I don't know how she finds out where I work.
Let me tell you something, sir. You think that she's bothering you?
Yes.
You think you took advantage of her?
No.
When you take money from somebody, and you took money from her because, according to you, she wanted to keep you around, is that right?
Basically, yes.
Just a second. You think she wanted to keep you around because she legitimately cared for you?
Yes.
And you cared for her or not?
No.
So you took her money. You knew that you didn't care for her the same way. Does that make you a good person or a bad person?
A bad person, Your Honor.
Right! Well, that's another smart thing that you said, Mr. Dickinson.
This is the...
And let me tell you something else, Mr. Dickinson. Bad people, when they come into court, you don't come into court and cry, she's stalking me, she's harassing me. Well, maybe she just got fed up with you. She got fed up with being taken. Not nice. Did you file a police report,
No.
Mr. Dickinson?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
So it evidently didn't bother you that much, sir, that she was coming and doing donuts with her car in the parking lot.
I didn't want to hurt her.
Oh, that's good. So why would you want to hurt her now?
I don't want to hurt her now.
Good. Your counterclaim's dismissed. Thank you very much. Smarten up, Miss Dady.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She just saw it because she gave me the money.
He's a user,
And she didn't get the return on it that she thought she would.
and he's a loser.
I didn't want to be with you.
I'm a survivor.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter, Herzog versus Emery. Step forward, please.
Kimberly Herzog is suing her former nanny, 24-year-old Sarah Emery, for a loan to pay her bills, lost wages, and daycare costs. Sarah says Kimberly is possessive and controlling.
Miss Herzog, the defendant was working for you as a nanny, and according to your complaint, you loaned her $1,000 because she was having some back surgery. The arrangement was that she was supposed to pay you back you were going to deduct a certain amount of money when she returned to work from her weekly salary. So far, am I correct?
Yes.
And she had the surgery, and then, according to you, she left your employment. You want your money back.
Correct.
And Miss Emery said that you fired her without good cause, and that's why she couldn't pay you back. When did she come to work for you?
She started working for me January of 2004.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
When was the surgery?
January
Of 2005. So for the year that she worked for you, from January 2004 till January 2005, was her work satisfactory?
Yes, until the very end, which actually led to the dismissal. I had spoken to her on multiple occasions.
About what?
About making my child sit on a couch for 3 hours while my other child was sleeping.
That's not true.
When did she borrow the money from you?
She borrowed the money on January 14th.
So she borrowed the money after you had had conversations with her about her performance, her
Yes.
work performance. Was she scheduled to be out of work for any period of time?
Yes, she took 2 weeks off.
And there is no issue as to whether Ms. Herzog loaned you the money?
Correct.
Well, now I'll hear your defense.
Okay. In January, I gave my 2 weeks after I came back to work on Monday. Tuesday night, I had called her and I told her I was going to stay with my sister, and she got angry at me and told me that I had to stay at her house.
Well, was it your usual routine to stay at her, to sleep at her house? Or
Yes, I was a live-in nanny, so I stayed at her house.
So why were you going to stay at your sister's house?
It was she expected me to hang out with her and spend time with her at night when I was off duty, and I didn't think that I should have to stay at her house when I was paying her rent or spend time with her family if I didn't want to.
So what did you do?
We got in a big argument, and I told her that if I wanted to stay with my sister, that I could. And she got angry at me and then started accusing me of things with the boys, of not caring for them the way I should, and that I loved my nephew more, and all this stuff that wasn't true. And we ended up getting a fight, and on Wednesday I couldn't handle anymore, and so when she was at work, I moved out.
When you moved out on Wednesday, how did you intend to repay the $1,000?
I was going to make payments from. I gave her 2 weeks notice, and I was going to be able to get a job within that 2 weeks and pay her back. But 2 days later, she fired me. I tried to get unemployment, and she's fighting me on that. She's trying to do anything she can to ruin my life.
How are you supporting yourself?
Right now, I finally started to get unemployment from the state.
Go ahead. Let me hear what happened between Wednesday and Friday.
On Wednesday, I come home, and everything was moved out of the house.
And she quit?
And she quit. And she had my kids the whole day that she had done this.
Fine. She quit.
Yes,
Did she work for you on Thursday and Friday?
Yes. I didn't have anything else I could do at that point.
Okay. What did you say to her on Thursday and Friday?
I told her that I didn't understand why she would do something like she had done, move out of our home like that, quit. We had done everything to help her. It really hurt. It hurt to help someone so much and not.
Did you fire her on Friday?
I did not fire her. I rendered her services at that point. I couldn't trust her in my home.
So you fired her? You let her go? Tell me what you did.
I just came home and I gave her money that she had worked and let her know that at that point on I did not want her watching my children.
Well, I would probably do the same thing. If somebody moved out of my house after almost a year working for me without notifying me, moved stuff out during the course of the day when you're supposed to be watching her children, I would probably terminate your services too. In any event, you should have let her quit. She wouldn't have collected unemployment.
I'm fighting it.
Well,
she didn't appear to the appear hearing last week, so.
The truth of the matter is, she quit on Wednesday, and she owes you the money. You took $60 out of
yes, I did.
The first paycheck, the
Yes,
last
I did.
paycheck you gave her, so she owes you $940. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $940. That's all.
Why did you step out? Now, this is case number 182 on the calendar, the matter of Weaver versus Cooley. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Young ladies, have seats, please.
Oh, my goodness. Do you really want to be here?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, this is your complaint. Your daughter and the defendant's daughter are friends, and you were taking a trip to Hawaii. According to your complaint, you invited Mr. Cooley's daughter to accompany your family on the trip. And the arrangement was that if she were going to go with you, her mother and father, who are divorced, were going to split the cost of her basic trip.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that right?
That's correct.
And it is your claim that Mr. Cooley who was her father, did not pay for his half of her trip.
Yes.
Mr. Cooley said that he never had a contract with you, right?
That's correct.
That he was sort of presented with a fait accompli, that he fell on some hard financial times, otherwise he certainly would have wanted his daughter to have this experience, which she, by the way, did have. She did go with you. His defense is that he never had a contract with you. When were you planning this trip?
February of 2004 is when we first contacted them about planning the trip.
When you say them, who did you contact?
I contacted Brittany's mother because Brittany lives with her mom, and we discussed the option of her being able to go with us.
And what was the arrangement that you made with her mother?
I told her mother that we'd be happy for Brittany to accompany us because she was our daughter's best friend, and that if she would pay for just the airline flight and then the expenses of the activities such as the snorkeling and et cetera that we did there, okay, and that we would be glad to pay for all of her food and then any of the other miscellaneous expenses. And then her mother said that she would have to contact Brittany's father to see if he'd pay for half and let us know. Then she called us and said that she'd spoke with her ex-husband, and he agreed.
Did you speak with him?
We spoke with him 30 days before the trip. He came over to our house. Not that date, not that time.
When did you go on the trip?
December.
So practically a year later.
Correct.
And it wasn't until November that you say that you contacted Mr. Cooley. Is that right?
Yes, because we were unable to get a hold of him.
Had you purchased the tickets already?
Yes, ma'am.
So you purchased the non-refundable tickets based upon the conversation you had with Brittany's mother.
Correct.
Now, you understand that up until this time you had no contract with Mr. Cooley. Do you understand that?
No, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to try to explain it to you.
Okay.
What you did was you had, at best, a contract with Brittany's mother to pay for half the cost of the trip. Brittany's mother cannot obligate Brittany's father to pay for the other half. She can't say he's going to pay for the other half and in any way obligate him. Do you have a sibling?
Yes, ma'am.
Brother or sister?
I have 2 sisters and a brother.
Okay, let's take the brother. He's easy. What's his name?
Michael.
All right, let's say Michael wanted to have his family room redone. So he went to a contractor, and the contractor said it's going to cost $10,000 to redo your family room. And Michael said, that's fine. I'm going to pay for half, and my sister promised me that she would pay for the other half as a birthday present. So you go ahead and you do this renovation for $10,000. Michael gives him $5,000 and says, go get the other $5,000 from my sister. What's your first name?
Susan.
Susan. Goes to Susan. Susan says, listen, I told him if I could, one day I would like to make a present of $5,000, but I never agreed to pay you $5,000. I didn't have a contract with you. You want your money, go to Michael. Now do you understand?
I understand that, ma'am, yes.
He may have agreed to something, but up until November, I just want you to understand you had no contract with him.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me what happened in November.
Well, my husband spoke with him. I don't know if you want to talk to him as far as that.
I sure do.
Okay.
He's the only one I can speak to if he spoke to him.
I talked to Mr. Cooley about the expenses that we had occurred already, purchasing the non-refundable tickets, and that she would need $300 to $400 to pay for the incidental expenses that she would occur as far as the snorkeling, the luau, and that kind of stuff that she would need over there. And he agreed at that time that...
What did he say? Not he agreed. What did he say?
He said that the trip sounded good, that it was a one-in-a-lifetime trip for her, that it was something that they had never, ever planned for her to do, and that he would pay his half.
He said he would pay his half?
His half.
And are those the words he used?
To the best of my recollection, yes, Your Honor.
Did he give you any money?
No, ma'am.
So when was he supposed to pay you?
He indicated that he had had some problems health-wise, and at the time he was unable to give us any money. And we told him when he got back on his feet, whenever he could pay us monthly payments or whatever have you. But basically, he had us over a barrel. We had to take Brittany. We weren't going to disappoint her and not take her.
Now it's your turn.
Well, first of all, I didn't go to their house at all. My conversation with Mr. Weaver was over the phone, and that was only because in August I went on disability, and I was informing him that I was not going to be able to pay, and he had said, quote unquote, well, give me what you can, and if you can't give me anything, then that's fine, your daughter's going to go anyway. So I mentioned to my daughter that I wasn't going to be able to pay for her trip, and she was going to have to ask her mother to pay for it in its entirety.
Okay. Something that you said to me, Mr. Cooley, however, has an interesting ring to it. You said that you called the Weavers because your financial circumstances changed. You wanted to let them know that you could no longer pay your half. Is that right?
That's true.
Well, that suggests to me, sir, that you had originally told your ex-wife that you would pay for half when she originally called you in February of 2004. Are you following what I'm saying to you? Am I correct, Mr. Cooley, that you originally told your ex-wife that you would pay for half of the expenses?
That is correct. But in February of 2004, I was under the impression that I was only going to help her out on her airfare.
Fine. Let's say that's what you were told, that you were going to pay for half the airfare. Not help her out, half, because the words that you used to me were half, right?
Right.
Now, the airfare was how much?
The exact price was $729.43.
So is what you're telling me now, Mr. Cooley, that what your understanding was that you were going to pay for half the airfare, and that's what you agreed to with your former wife? Don't think of what I'm going to say after that, Mr. Cooley. Believe me, you're never going to be able to leapfrog over my mind.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're dealing with children. She could just as easily go to her father and say, listen, I want to go on this trip. It's $200 to go. It turns out that it's $2,000. What am I going to do, put her in jail?
And later today,
You claim that he made over $2,000 in sex calls, probably many of whom are guys talking and making out.
best friend, Mark Cooley, owes for a Hawaiian vacation.
Now, is that what you agreed to with your former wife, to pay for half the airfare?
Right. Well, to be honest with you, my correspondence with my wife, because we don't speak, has been through my daughter.
Is that what you promised your daughter?
Correct.
And your daughter, I assume, conveyed that to her mother.
Yeah.
Brittany, what did you tell your mother?
Well, I told my mom that I was going on the trip and how much it was.
How much did you tell her it was?
I told her that as far as what I knew, it was $350 that she was supposed to pay.
And you told your father the same thing?
That he was supposed to pay $350 also.
And he agreed to that?
Yes.
Good. Now you can sit down. Okay, Mr. Cooley, let us assume everything that you say is correct, that you were going to pay for half the airfare. Why didn't you pay him?
Well, in August, I went on disability, and so my whole financial situation changed.
You already said that to me. But at this point, they had non-refundable tickets, and one way or another, your daughter was going to go. Did you ever think, sir, of saying, I have to send the Weavers $50 a month because I agreed to do that? They took my daughter on a trip. I had a contract with them to pay them half, according to you. Not according to them, but according to you, half the airfare for your daughter.
When I gave them the $150, there was somewhat of an agreement that I could pay monthly.
When did you give them $150?
I gave them $150 upon them coming back from
Give me
their
the
trip.
date. You have the date?
It was January 6th, Your Honor.
And you cashed that check?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So that's January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 6 months later. And you haven't given them any money since?
Well, in April, the tides had turned because they kind of sent me a threatening letter, or at least I thought it was threatening, informing me that we don't want any ill feelings toward you or your wife. This could affect our daughter and your daughter's friendship.
They're absolutely right. It's a very good reason for you to send a check and say, I'm sorry, I told you that finances were really tight. I realize that this is my obligation. Here's $50. Here's $30. Here is something to demonstrate that I recognize that this is my obligation. You have a letter like that?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Well, that's the wrong thing. You did the wrong thing, sir. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, the only contract that I can ascribe to Mr. Cooley is for half of the airfare. And I say that because that's what his daughter says that she told her mother, and she told him. So, unfortunately, what?
We sent Mr. Cooley 3 letters advising him that he still owed us money. He sent us a letter back. And in that letter, he said that it's not verbatim.
Show me the letter.
You got it, ma'am?
If what you're saying to me is he acknowledges anything more than
Yes,
the
Your Honor, it does.
airfare.
The letter's several pages long, Your Honor. The first page shows that he agreed to pay half.
Well, let
but
me
it just
see.
says to pay half of Brittany's expenses.
Have the letter.
The whole letter.
Uh-huh.
And, Your Honor, if I may just say one more thing. Brittany's mom paid us the $550.
I don't care
that
what she
owed
did.
us, so she knew that half of it was $550.
Listen
if
to
I just
me.
might say that.
You cannot ascribe anything to him that Brittany's mother knew.
Okay, I won't say anything else
Nothing.
about that.
If you want to have a contract with somebody, you have to talk to them face to face, or you have to speak to them personally over the phone, and then memorialize it in a written document that is signed. And then it's a contract that you have between two people. If you're dealing with children, she could just as easily go to her father and say, listen, I want to be able to go on this trip. It's $200 to go. Will you pay for $200? And he says, sure, I'll pay for $200. And it turns out that it's $2,000. You've already booked the ticket, so you're out $2,000. What am I going to do, put her in jail? Of course not. That's why you don't deal with children when you're making a contract with.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Cooley, listen to me. This is all wrong, sir. You say to them, I agreed to pay one half of my daughter's expenses. And if I believe what you say it was based on me being employed. Well, that's not true. That's not true, sir. Your agreeing to pay for half of her airfare was not based upon your being employed, because you didn't have that conversation with your daughter. When you said to your daughter, I'll pay for half of your airfare, you didn't say to her, on condition that I'm still working, right?
Right.
Okay. I had no control over my going on disability, which cut my salary in third. So what? What's that their problem? That's your problem, not theirs. What's the nature of your disability?
Stress.
And you came here? I can see from this rambling letter that you are stressed, Mr. Cooley, so I won't proceed any further. You owe these people an additional $214, and that's giving you every possible benefit of the doubt, sir, that the only thing you agreed to was to pay for one half of her airfare. I mean, I think that if you wanted to be a good guy, you would say to them, listen, I don't want you to be out any money, and I don't want our daughters who were good friends to be estranged, so I'm going to make it my business to see to it that you get the extra $50 a month until it's all paid off. But from a legal perspective, I can't do that. I can, however, find that you agreed to pay for half the airfare. You have already given them $150, leaving a balance of $214. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't know if it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. It's not like she's not going to be able to go anywhere else.
Brittany's dad has a problem with this now, and so she's not really able to come over to our house.
We don't really hang out that much anymore.
I think she'd be over a lot more this summer if this wasn't going on.
We'll still be friends.
I hope that would happen.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter, Fleischer versus McWhorter. Step forward, please.
Harriet Fleischer is suing her former tenant, Robert McWhorter, for rent and for running up her phone bill with sex calls.
Miss Fleischer, do you live in a private house or an apartment?
Private house.
How long have you lived there?
18 and a half years.
Who do you live with?
Currently I have one tenant.
What kind of work do you do, Miss Fleischer?
I'm a computer consultant.
How long have you been doing that kind of work?
Far too long. 9 and a half, 10 years.
This is your complaint. You rented a room to Mr. McWhorter, who was a friend of yours and going through some difficult times. You said that you would allow him to come and stay in your home, $100 a week, and you claim he left owing you some rent.
That's correct.
Which is really not what you're complaining about, because he acknowledges that he owes a couple of $100s in rent. You claim that he made over $2,000 in 1-900 sex calls on your phone.
That's correct.
Mr. McWhorter said, I didn't do that. When were you living with Miss Fleischer and Mr. McWhorter?
Approximately right before Thanksgiving till the 23rd of December.
So maybe November the 20th?
Yeah, it was a Saturday when I moved in.
To December what?
23rd.
You have a copy of your phone bill?
I do. I have a
I'd like to take a look at it, please.
I had spoke to Mrs. Fleischer when I returned from my trip, and she verbally told me over the phone, I took her word for it, I never physically saw the bills myself, that it was between $900 and $1,000.
Look at me. What difference does it make how it was 900 and 1,000? I read your answer, Mr. McWhorter. Your answer says, I didn't make those calls and I don't know who did. So is now what you're telling me, sir, that you did make these calls, you just didn't know the extent of the bill. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct.
All right, well, that's a little different from your answer. I know that sometimes I can be a little intimidating. That's a very good thing. So I don't have to go through these bills and humiliate you to see how long you stood on the line with these people, probably many of whom are guys talking and making out that they're women. Go find a nice girl, Mr. McWhorter. Get your own phone.
May I interject here, Your Honor?
Oh, if you have to.
Robert told me that he had his own phone when we made arrangements for his moving in.
Miss Fleischer, doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
His story now, after he took a look at this kind face of mine, was, I acknowledge I made the phone calls, that I was stupid, right?
Very.
I was unthinking, right? Right? I'm dying to pay you and get out of here because I'm humiliated. And don't humiliate me anymore.
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. They could all be so easy.
There are guys pretending to be women?
Yeah, I saw that in a movie once. You know, there were guys that just raise their voice and they sit there and they make other people feel foolish. It was in some Jack Lemmon movie or something. Remember Jack Lemmon?
Remember Jack Lemmon?
Most people don't remember Jack Lemmon. I remember Jack Lemmon.
May I say something, Your Honor?
What?
When I have explained to Mrs. Fleischer that I'm an alcoholic and I did have gone through several blackout stages, that's why. No, I'm putting it all on the table.
Listen, I gotcha. I understand.
And this is part of my recovery, is to make amends for whatever damages I have.
So why did you have to come here? Why couldn't you tell her that outside?
I attempted to. I didn't know that I was even actually have been taken to court until.
Well, where did you think you were going? To Never Never Land today?
No.
How much do you owe for rent?
I believe it would be between $100 and $200.
He left owing $200 in rent.
Okay.
On a week-to-week, there's a 1 week, as I understand it, a 1 week...
There's a 1 week nothing. Don't go crazy.
Okay.
He owes you $2,652.
Okay.
She's taken care of this before you came to court, sir. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Good.
Your
Thank
Honor?
you very much. That's it.
Parties are excused. You may step out. This is case number 118 on the calendar, the matter of Sear versus Zanger. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Miss Sear, you and Mr. Zanger are neighbors,
Yes, we are.
but I gather the properties are spread out.
They're very far apart.
How many acres do you have?
I have 6.5.
And Mr. Zanger, how many acres do you have property?
Just short of 6.
This is your complaint, that Mr. Zanger keeps peacocks, and he also has dogs.
Yes.
You claim that his peacocks got out of his property and came onto your property and ate your screens. That his dogs attacked your dogs. You have vet bills that you want him to pay for. And that when you complained, he sent out a letter to neighbors that really vilified you and caused you a substantial amount of hardship. And you want to be compensated for that as well. Mr. Zanger says the screens, really no big deal. That his dogs are territorial, and as far as the letter is concerned, he never meant the letter to cause you any embarrassment or stress. He was really trying to be neighborly. That's your defense.
Exactly.
How long have you been neighbors?
It'll be 3 years in July.
Do you have pictures of your peacocks, Mr. Zanger?
I do.
May I see them, please?
They're so pretty.
How long have you had these birds?
About 4 years, I would say.
Do you keep them contained in any way?
Not at all.
Okay. So you understand if you don't keep them contained in any way, you are responsible for any damage that they cause.
Yes.
Good. So tell me about the damage that the peacocks caused, Miss Sear.
We have a 3-story house. They've gotten up there and ate all 5 of the screens on our 3rd story.
Can I see the pictures, please? They certainly are beautiful
Here,
birds.
they're 8 all the way
Thank
up
you.
to here.
Beautiful. Where did you get them?
In New York.
How many do you have?
Right now, only 2. The others were eaten by the mountain lions. And may I just add, at this point, I have them as security against rattlesnakes.
Well, that's nice, but they eat her screens.
That was none of my desire.
I understand that,
Or
but
my
may not be your
doing.
desire, but they're annoying. This is the damage they caused.
May I address you in that point? This happened actually 3 years ago. I came back from New York, where I spent my summers on my island. And then I was told by one of the neighbors that Zach said his father had shot at the peacocks on the roof or above. I went up to the Sear residence. I introduced myself. They were new neighbors. And I met Mr. Sear, and I asked him if he did actually take aim at the peacocks. And he said, yes, he shot above them because they were on a roof. I said, okay, why don't you use a water hose? water does really deter almost all animals.
Yeah.
And eventually Mrs. Sear came out and she said, you know, they ate our screens, and I did not see them.
Okay, well, somebody wasn't watching the store. How much is it going to cost you to replace the screens?
The screens, I found a lower estimate for $85.79.
$85.79, cheap enough, taking care of the screens. Let's get to the problem with the dogs.
My son and his 9-year-old friend, my son was 11. They were walking.
Were you there?
I was at the house, no.
You the son?
Yeah.
Step up. Tell me your name.
Zachary Sear.
All right, Zachary. When were you walking your dogs that you had a problem with Mr. Zanger's dogs?
About April 26th.
How many dogs were you walking?
I was only walking 2.
What kinds of dogs were you walking?
German Shepherd and Lab.
Mixed.
Were you walking them on leashes?
No. I was leading them with my hand.
And where were you walking them?
I was walking them down the road. We have like a halfway where it splits. And I go from there back and just check out the neighborhoods.
Okay. Tell me what happened, Zachary.
Okay, I was walking down and I see 3 dogs coming down. A St. Bernard and 2 looks like Black Labs and Rottweiler mixed. And the St. Bernard was okay. It just stayed away, but then...
Yeah, they're big and goofy and fun.
Yeah.
The St. Bernard's very sweet.
We have one in our family.
They are very sweet.
I know.
And then those 2 Rottweiler and Lab mixes, they were all sniffing, and then one started to bite the older dog.
Whose older dog?
Our older dog. They just started to fight and everything, and I was getting freaked out, so I tried to help. And then they went to go attack the younger dog, which is our dog, but that dog just ran away. Then they started attacking my dog's legs, and they started pouncing on her chest and everything, and she had a big, like, hump or something on her side of her ribs. And then my mom came back up, and that's when we got contact with Mr. Zanger.
What did Mr. Zanger say to you, Miss Sear?
Well, I heard the boys screaming, so I got in my truck and I drove down. I met with the boys, so I put the boys and the dog in my truck, and as I came, he came down in his silver car, and I pulled up next to him, and I said, "Do you see what happened?" And he says, "Yes." He goes, "My dogs are territorial." He says, "Anything that walks over here, they think that they own the road." I said, "If your dogs are dangerous, you need to take care of your animals." My dog never left my son's side as they were pouncing him and everything else. She's not aggressive.
Okay, Mr. Zanger.
Thank you. I would like to say the dogs have absolutely no Rottweiler in them. Both of them are black, as you see. Both of them are female and spayed.
Good. That's very nice. They got off your property. Did you say to Miss Sear when she called you that my dogs are territorial?
I did say so, yes. You see, when we moved there, we saw the area is so rural, and I felt we have our dogs there also to keep the rattlesnakes away. I had to kill rattlesnakes right in front of my house, and I have a 6-year-old granddaughter, and I want her to be safe.
Mr. Zanger, my dear, you choose to live there.
Yes.
If you choose to live there, you have to have whatever protection you need for your 6-year-old granddaughter.
That's...
If you choose to have your 6-year-old granddaughter live in an area where she's playing in the front yard, but for your dogs and your peacocks, there are going to be rattlesnakes. That's your choice. You don't have the right to have dogs who've decided that their territory goes beyond the boundary of your deed. And when you do, you are responsible for the damage that they cause. So now I will see the letter.
And then he issued out a letter to all of my neighbors in May stating that when I brought him my vet bill, I knocked on the door, Mr. Zanger walked out, shut the door behind him, and I said, "The other day when your dogs attacked my dog, here's my vet bill." He took it, he looked at it, and he goes, "So what? Good." He goes, "Get off my property." I said, "You're responsible for what happens." He goes, "Get off my property right now." And I said, "It's very sad because I'm going to call animal control and it'll probably end up with your animals being destroyed." I did say that. I never said I was going to shoot them. His 6-year-old granddaughter was never there. He sent that out to my neighbors.
Can I read the letter, please?
Certainly.
Are you employed, sir?
No, I'm retired.
You got a lot of time on your hands. And anybody receiving this letter, Miss Sear, would understand that this is the musing of somebody who has a lot of time on their hands. It's not the kind of letter that you sue over. He's not only complaining about you, he's complaining about other people. He talks about other instances that happened in 1998 with his dogs. He talks about stolen car parts, which he doesn't attribute to you. It is the musings and meanderings of somebody who had nothing else to do. You don't get compensated for this. You do, however, get compensated for the injuries to your dogs and for the screens that his peacocks damaged. Those two amounts together come to $477.63. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it was fair. The only reason I brought the letter in was to prove that, he was distributing lies to all my neighbors, but I think it was very fair.
I do applaud Judge Judy for whatever she does and how she does it, and I abide by her decision.
He's got too much time on his hands.
Let bygones be bygones, and let's work together to a better neighborhood.
All parties in the matter of Feldman versus Martinez, step forward.
23-year-old college student Stephanie Feldman is suing her ex-best friend, 24-year-old Emily Martinez, for vandalizing the inside of her home with pink paint and rotting meat.
Ms. Feldman, the defendant moved into a home that you share with your father, according to your complaint, and you had an argument. After a period of time, she moved out, and it is your claim that she vandalized the house. You want her to pay for the damage that she did in the house. Ms. Martinez said she did not vandalize the house, and she is counterclaiming. She said she wants damages because during the course of this argument, you assaulted her, right?
Yes.
When did you move in and why, Ms. Martinez?
I was persuaded by Stephanie to...
No, listen. When did you move in?
In September of '04.
Who did you move in with?
With my son's father, my fiancé at the time.
And what about your son?
He was with me as well.
What, did you have a room or an apartment?
It was a room.
Okay. When did you start to pay rent?
Immediately.
How much did you pay?
I paid $400 a month.
So far, is that right?
No.
No. When did she move in?
She moved in around September, like she said, but actually the first month that she moved in with Hugo, I didn't charge her. Because I'm the godmother of her son, I said, I'll do you the favor and you don't have to pay for the first month. And she gets public assistance, and I have a letter here that I was getting $141.50 twice a month for Emily staying there.
Were you getting welfare in September of 2004?
No. When I moved in with her, I moved in with my fiancé. We separated, and that's when I was out of work and I applied for public assistance.
Were they paying the rent?
Not initially. Initially,
when did they start paying the rent?
Around November.
All right, good. So they paid the rent, $283.
I paid the difference.
Show me proof.
I don't have proof because we were best friends.
Did she pay any additional rent? She says you didn't give her additional money and that all she got for the room was $283 that she got from public assistance.
Yes.
Okay, keep going. What was the argument about and when did it occur?
Okay, it all started when she was no longer with Hugo. Hugo decided that he was going to move out. Her and Hugo broke up. She started dating this other guy named Fred, okay? My nephew let Hugo in the house while she was in the room with Fred. A whole thing started where Fred tried to stab Hugo, and Hugo had to jump out of the window. So I told her after that argument that, this has to stop. The police came. I said, I don't want this drama in my house.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Let me tell you why. I'm really comfortable.
How so?
If you're quiet, I'm going to explain it to you. And I want you to understand there's only one attitude in this room.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephanie Feldman says her ex-best friend, Emily Martinez, vandalized the inside of her home. Emily is countersuing for an assault and the return of her security deposit.
Okay, when did she finally move out?
April 7th, that was the 30-day. The first argument was on March 7th when I was speaking to my nephew about not shoveling. That's his responsibility to do. And she got into the argument. I said, Emily, please mind your business, and she wouldn't. So that's when I had asked her to leave. I said, if you're going to get into my family business...
That's when she claims you slapped her. Did you slap her?
No. She went to go hit me on the entrance door by her room, and I moved her hand out of the way out of self-defense. I'm going to see somebody hitting me and stand there.
Okay. Were you injured?
Yes.
Well, tell me about the injury.
Okay. She was in a violent rage. She is very violent. She has violent outbreaks towards her father.
You shouldn't have moved in with her if she was violent.
Well, I didn't realize that. You don't know these things till you move in with people. You never know someone till you live with them.
Show me pictures of your injuries.
I don't have any pictures.
Do you have a police report about your injuries?
No, I don't.
All right. Could you get to the vandalism of the property, please? She moved out April 7th.
Yes. I was at work because I'm a supervisor in the after school. My father and my nephew were home.
Father?
Yeah.
Could you step up, please? What is your last name, sir?
Feldman.
Mr. Feldman, were you home on or about the 7th of April when Miss Martinez came in to get the remainder of her things?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
She took her stuff and she left.
And then what happened?
My grandson and I left, and when we came back, the back room was destroyed.
You have photographs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I see it, please?
And there's also photographs on the back as well. And that also has photographs of the meat that was planted in my apartment.
What is this pink stuff that was spilled all over the place?
That was the pink paint that she used. As you could see, it's the same color of the room. That pink paint was in Emily's possession, was never in my possession.
You also said that somebody put stuffed food around the house.
Yes. That day, when I walked in, I noticed a foul odor in my bedroom. And I couldn't figure out what it was, but I had people over, so I wasn't going to start searching all over. And the next day, I found chopped meat in my heater system, fish under my bed. That's what you see in the pictures. Chopped meat and pig's legs all over the house, behind my fridge, behind my bed wall. And
anybody else have access to the house?
Only the people that live with me, which is my dad, my nephew, and Millie, who is my godmother.
Go ahead.
Okay. She has an open house. She has a party house.
First, let's go with the pink paint.
Okay. I mean, that was planted after I left. This is all a retaliation because I called the police on her because she attacked me. And she told me I had to have my stuff out by a certain day. I removed it.
Wait a second. Wait. She didn't attack you. You said she slapped you.
She was attacking me.
You said she slapped you, is what you said.
That's all she got in because I was...
Listen to me. You still vandalized the house.
That's
allegedly. You or what's the boyfriend's name?
Fred.
Fred. You or Fred.
Allegedly.
No, I have to make a decision whether that happened.
How is the evidence? Where's the evidence that I did that? She has an open house. Her door's never locked. There's guys coming in and out of her apartment all hours of the night.
Miss Martinez, let me tell you why. I'm really comfortable, really comfortable finding that you vandalized the house.
How so?
If you're quiet, I'm going to explain it to you. And I want you to understand there's only one attitude in this room.
I'm not trying to have an attitude.
Good.
I just don't like being accused.
So I'm going to explain it to you because how long have you lived in this house?
That's been in my family for 50 years. I've lived there all my life.
Shh. Listen to me. Listen to me. How many times have you found chopped meat in the heater system?
Not at all.
Never?
No.
Mr. Feldman, how many times have you found chopped meat in the heating system in the last 50 years?
Never.
How many times have you found paint spilled on the floor?
Never.
In 50 years?
Never.
So the only time
listen
to me. I'm speaking now. You asked me for a reason. I'm giving you the reason. I'm being nice to you. The world revolves around common sense.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't make sense, it's not true. If it makes sense, then more often than not, it's true. Now, she's had, according to you, an open house. Lots of people come in and out of the house. Mr. Feldman has lived there for 50 years. I'm sure he's had lots of people in and out of the house. It is too coincidental, and it belies credulity, which means it just doesn't make sense, that in the last 50 years, the only time that they've had trouble with vandalism in their house to this extent, in a room where you and Fred and Hugo had been living, and the only time she had meat found in the heating system is the day you moved out.
This is a case of single white female. She wants to be me. The problem was
Listen to me,
I had
sweetheart.
a boyfriend and she wanted me to be hanging out with her every day. I had to be by her side every day.
You. Listen to me.
She has a serious psychological problem, and this is a retaliation against me.
Then you should have a different place to live.
I do.
In any event, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500, which is the cost of your cleanup, which is what you say. You should not have to clean up. I'm speaking. You won, so be quiet. You have a counterclaim for assault. I find that you weren't assaulted, so it's dismissed. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step up. Yes, case number 116 on the calendar in the matter of Burkhart versus Reed. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. And have a seat.
Mr. Burkhart, you and Miss Reed had a relationship and you have a child together. Is that right?
Yes, 5-year-old Michaela.
Your complaint alleges that you made 2 loans to Miss Reed over a year ago. And in addition to that, she took out a small amount of money, $100 and some odd from a bank account that she should not have, also over a year ago. So far correct?
So far correct.
That you did not pursue this matter during the past year because there were open criminal charges against you for assaulting Miss Reed. You wanted to wait until that case had been resolved before you pursued these loans.
Yes, ma'am.
You were, several weeks ago, convicted after a jury trial
Yes, ma'am.
of assaulting Miss Reed, and now that that has been resolved, you want your money.
Yes.
Miss Reed says that that money was given to her in lieu of child support, and you are currently thousands of dollars in arrears on your child support. One was for college tuition, $975, and one was for rent, $400 for rent. Is that right?
Yes.
Miss Reed? And that she did close out a bank account. The bank account was in her name.
Yes.
So she had the right to close it out. And you are still thousands of dollars in arrears in child support. That's your defense.
Yes.
When was the first alleged loan, Mr. Burkhart?
Back in March of '04.
What was it for?
She came to me and asked me for help. She was taking college courses, and as you know, when you go to college, if you're only taking a single course, you're not eligible for TAP or Pell. So she needed the money for the college course. And then a month later, she needed money for the rent, and I said, that's fine too. You know, I would help her out with that I would loan her the money for that.
And that's really what you're suing for, as far as the loans are concerned.
Well, yeah, and the 192, I was a trustee. See, I'm disabled, and we wanted to set up a bank account so our daughter Michaela could get the money. Then she found out that I had by accident, $18,000 of disability, a Social Security disability that I got put into that account by mistake because I was a trustee. They seen my name. So one day I get this call, she's crying about, oh, you got $18,000, why wasn't I given any of this? It was my disability, it had nothing to do with hers. As far as this money being towards support, if you look at the support...
Just a second.
Okay.
She took $192.
She closed the account out. That's what the balance was when she closed it.
And when was the last time you lived together?
It was around the year 2000. Because Michaela was born, and 6 months later she attacked me. I had just had my knee replaced, and I asked her to leave because we weren't getting along. She was getting too violent.
I didn't ask you to go into that. I'm really not interested. 2000.
Yes.
And has your daughter remained in Miss Reed's custody since?
No.
She was in your custody or in somebody else's custody?
In my custody for 4 years. I had her from Sunday to Friday, and then most of the weekends that she would go out with other people.
Okay, and she would go with her mother?
For the weekend.
For the weekend?
Yes.
Now, was that pursuant to a court order?
No, that was just, she was working, I was disabled, so it was convenient. So for 4 years I did that.
Until when?
Until last year around, it was like June or July. She took me to court for support. And the judge said, I can't give you support. He's got her from Sunday to Friday.
June or July of last year, 2004?
Right. So when she found
was this alleged assault? When was the assault?
That was over a year ago, about a year.
When?
That was around a little after March, a little after...
March of 04?
04.
So right after these 2 loans or right before these 2 loans?
No, it was before. The assault was after the loans.
Assault was after the loans?
Right.
But up until June of 04, Michaela was with you?
Yes.
Even after the assault?
Yes. Until she found out she couldn't get support. And once she found out she couldn't get support, the judge said, no, he's with her. Within 10 days, she took my daughter, and I haven't had her back since.
When did the court enter an order of support, Mr. Burkhart?
Around September or October. Then she was granted support because then she had my daughter.
May I see the order, please? As of April 2005, sir, the court found you in arrears of $2,116.
Right, and that was because I didn't bring proof of financial, because I'm disabled. I only get $1,300 a month. So they gave an as needs, and you're a family court judge. You know what an as needs is, right? When you don't provide financial
Was that
proof.
order ever modified?
We're going back on the 17th of June.
My question is, was the order ever modified?
The original order was.
This order of arrears.
I don't know. All I can tell you is the original order was $61.
The net due, as of this month,
right,
is $3,255.48.
Right. That will be corrected.
I don't know if it's going to be corrected or not. I have no idea if it's going to be corrected, but right now that's what you owe.
Right.
Well, if that's what you owe, sir, why do you think that I would even entertain a case against her for $1,200?
First of all, she lied to you about this being part of the child support. How could I loan her something a year and a half ago or a year ago and base it on child support when there was no child support in effect at that time? So that tells you she's lying.
No, just a second. Yeah. No, she's not lying, Mr. Burkhart.
Yes, she is.
What? I get the last word.
Okay.
What she said was you were not paying her child support. She didn't say there was a child support order in effect a year and a half ago. She said you were not paying her child support.
But I was giving her money. There's other money that I'd given her.
What's the nature of your current disability?
My knee and my back.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a special ed teacher.
You have other children?
I have a 17-year-old.
Does that child receive any disability from your Social Security disability?
They get $75 each.
What amount is the order of support, by the way?
I think it's $289 a month, which on a $1,300 income is not quite feasible.
There is work, sir, that you could do that doesn't involve you moving around.
And what might that be?
Well, let me ask you this question, Mr. Burkhart. How did you come to California?
On a plane.
And you sat for 5 hours?
Well, yeah, I got up, walked around.
Same way you could sit in your house and do telemarketing.
I probably could.
You can do a lot of things sitting at a desk that don't require...
with the legal matters.
I'm speaking,
okay,
sir.
Excuse me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Somebody who can sit on a plane for 5.5 hours from New York to California can get a different kind of a job that doesn't require him using his knee.
And later today...
You only called her the B word, that's it? Well, is that a nice name, William?
Nope.
Why did you call her a nasty name?
Starla Reed owes for 2 unpaid loans. Starla claims Roland is a deadbeat dad.
How old are you, sir?
53.
53. Well, you have a 5-year-old daughter. You decided to make a child when you should have been having grandchildren. That's something that you do when you have children to support.
I have a 17-year-old, too.
Listen to me, sir.
All right.
That's something that you have to do. $289 a month support is not a lot of money. It's certainly not half a child's support.
When you're only getting $1,300, that's quite a bit.
That's why you have to get a job,
Unfortunately,
sir.
I'm not allowed to work because of the doctor.
No, you're not allowed to work, sir, because you're getting disability.
Right. Well, until it's done. When the doctor gives me an okay to go back to work, I'll go back to work.
And all I'm saying to you, sir, is that there are things that you can do that don't require you doing anything physical, and that sometimes you have to modify a course in life.
All right.
That's not a joke. I mean, you can either get this federal welfare for disability. There are people who are really legitimately disabled, who can't move, who really can't move. Somebody who can sit on a plane for 5.5 hours from New York to California to try a case can get a different kind of a job that doesn't require him using his knee. Do you understand what I'm saying? And $289 is not a lot of money. And if the reason you were watching your daughter for 4 years is because you weren't working, which is what you told me, right?
Yes.
I'm telling you that you should get a job.
Yes, I will.
Get a
as soon
job.
as I'm done.
Good. Good. And, sir, I'm going to dismiss your case without prejudice for the following reason. I am not doing a set-off with the money that you allegedly owe Miss Reed for child support. In the event that your arrears are modified to 0, you have leave to get back on the plane and come back from New York and seek this $1,200. However, if the court sees fit to leave the arrears intact, she doesn't know you a dime. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, the court says he has visitation with my daughter, but she can't spend the night there because his house is unstable for a child to be there.
Eventually, I'm probably going to go to jail because I'm not giving her anything.
They found drug paraphernalia in his house. They found rats in his house.
I have snorted coke for quite a few years. It's good enough for Sigmund Freud.
He is able to get money from the state of New York for his disability, so he's faking that he has money.
You got a mother and father that can't stand each other, and you got a 5-year-old that's in between, and that's the toughest thing that we have to watch out, that we don't hurt Michaela because we don't like each other.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of English versus Murray. Step forward, please.
Bartender Dana English is suing his former friend, 25-year-old bartender Lara Murray, for a series of unpaid loans. Dana claims Lara used him.
Mr. English, you claim a series of loans to the defendant who was a friend of yours.
Yes.
Ms. Murray says that you were a kind friend. You gave her money. That's exactly what you did. You gave her money, and everything that you gave her were gifts. There was never any intention for her to repay those gifts, and it only became a problem when she rebuffed your romantic intentions.
No.
Okay. How old are you, Mr. English?
I'll be 48 in 2 weeks.
And how old are you, Miss Murray?
I'm 25.
Okay.
You got to find friends your own age, Mr. English. Then this sort of thing doesn't happen. According to what I read in your complaint, you hired Miss Murray to work as a hostess in a restaurant that you manage.
She was hired at the restaurant I worked at, yes.
When?
October.
Of what year?
2003.
When was the first loan you made her?
The insurance payment of October of 04.
How much?
$120.
And what was the arrangement, according to you, for repayment of that loan?
Lara said she would repay me the money because she didn't have it. She wasn't working that much.
So she said eventually she'll pay
Yes.
you back. When was the next loan?
It was for December, also a car insurance payment of $120.
December of 2004?
Yes.
Between October and December, had she paid you any money back of the first loan?
No.
When was the next loan?
The next loan was a car company called about the loan for her car. They didn't say it was her car. It was a $300 payment that I made, put the account number on it, and it was for her car, not mine. When I told Lara about this, she said she would repay me the $300.
So you made a car payment and they put it in the wrong account?
Yes. It had her account number on it, not mine, on the check.
How did you have her account number?
Because I said the loan company called me and told me she was behind on her car payment. Because I had co-signed the loan.
Oh, just when did you co-sign the loan, sir?
That would be in September of 2004. That was the second car I co-signed for her.
When was the first car that you co-signed for her?
May of 2003.
May I say something?
Not yet.
Okay.
What other monies did you loan to her, sir?
Lara came to live with me towards the end of January, and she needed clothes for work. We went out shopping, and I spent $118 on clothes for her to go to work.
Between October of 2004, when you gave her the first loan, and January of 2005, when you loaned her money to buy clothes, when she came to live with you, had she paid you back any of the original $120?
No, ma'am.
You get where I'm going, Mr. English?
I was a very good friend, and I got used.
Fine. So what are you doing in court?
Lara told me she'd pay me back. She just then said, I called her. She called me one night and said, sue me. So I sued her.
Now I'll hear you.
Well, I started working at the restaurant in October of 2002. So that's when I met him, and I've been friends with him ever since. I got my car in May of 2003, and I was short some money, and he said that if I needed it, that he could help me out. Anytime he'd buy me Christmas presents, birthday presents.
He's not talking about Christmas or birthday presents, Miss Murray.
Oh, I know.
He's talking about cash.
Yeah. Anytime I needed help, that I was saying that I needed help with my family, he was always there. He was always calling me, coming over, helping take my aunt to the grocery store. He doesn't have any other friends. I have a lot of friends, and when I started hanging out with my other friends more and not hanging out with him, his feelings got hurt, and then that's when he would start saying, well, I want this back, or I want to hang out with you at least one day a week. Then it started getting weird, and I started pulling back because I looked to him like a father figure. He is. He's like a father figure.
Why did you move into his house in January?
I only stayed. I was fighting with my family. I didn't move in. I was only there a couple of days.
She was there
How
for
long?
approximately 4 to 5 weeks.
No, I don't think
Off and on, yes.
Off and on.
But she was there.
Not straight.
No.
She went out and would stay away for days at a time and then come back.
Right.
Mr. English, you play around with a baby. This is you get babyish behavior.
Well, when she said she's going to repay me, I expect her to be repaid.
Well, Mr. English, I have to determine whether you had a legitimate expectation of being repaid. And when somebody borrows money in October and they don't pay you back, you don't lend them more money in December,
Well, when she keeps
and more, I'm speaking, and more money in January. You don't do that because then you don't have an expectation of being paid back. Eventually she'll pay you back if you live that long. Not from this court. You gotta learn, wisen up. She's a baby. She's still out there, you know, growing up. You're all grown up. Fortunately, the whole business cost you $797?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you say, $797. It was a cheap lesson. Is she making car payments?
No.
What happened to the car?
The car was repoed. It's being auctioned off today to make up the money that she owes on the car loans and the car being towed. She totaled the car. She wrecked both cars.
Find a nice contemporary friend. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Now, this is case number 55 on the calendar in the matter of Dennis versus E.B. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Miss Dennis, how old are you?
I'm 21.
Are you an only child?
I have 2 sisters.
Is this your dad?
Yep.
This is your complaint. Mr. E.B.
Yep.
is the prize. He is also the defendant. This is his wife?
Yes.
He separates from his wife in August. You take up with him almost immediately.
Yes.
Did you know he was separated at the time?
Yes.
So you knew he was married?
Yes.
How much after he left his wife did he hook up with you?
In October.
No, you met him before October. You moved in according to your complaint in October.
He lived next door to my parents.
With his wife or after he separated?
Both.
So as soon as the wife moved out, you started dating?
Yeah.
Big mistake. Did your father tell you it was a big mistake?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
How much of a big mistake did you tell her it was?
I told her it was a big one. I told her it wouldn't have been worth it.
So she moves in with him in October. Now, at that time, did you rented your own apartment?
I had my own place still.
And when did you become pregnant?
November.
Birth control sound familiar to you?
Yeah.
What did you say to her when you found out not only was she living with him, but she was pregnant?
They always tell me when I'm on the road, so I'll be calmed down when I get home.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Dennis?
Truck driver.
Well, then it seems that Mr. E.B. decides to go back to his wife. Your lawsuit for 2 things. For a couple of months' rent that is still owed after he moved out, and for the value of car that you purchased for him, Mr. Dennis. You purchased an old car, $500?
Yeah.
Now, Mr. E.B. says that the car was a gift and that you paid the bills while you were living there, but after you moved out, you changed the locks and you're not responsible for anything else.
Yep.
Mr. Dennis, I want you to tell me about the car.
She worked first shift. He worked second shift. She was getting off at...
Where?
She worked at a daycare, and he worked at a place called Cook's Foods. She was getting home by 4:30. He had to be to work by 4:45, which he was always being late. So I told him, I didn't tell him nothing really. I went out, I went to a car lot and asked them if they had a car for about $500. So on the way over to pick up the car, I asked him if he could get insurance on the car. And he said no. So I paid the $500, put the car in his name in case he had an accident. I didn't want to be liable for it. And then
so far, smart.
And then when they got their income tax money, I was supposed to get my $500 back. And that never happened.
What do you mean when they? You mean the 2 of them?
Well, he filed, but he put her kids on his income tax so he could get more money.
How many other children do you have?
I have 2.
You have enough children.
That's what I told her. I told her she had enough at 1.
Mr. Dennis, we could have been twins. Who takes care of these 3 children?
I do. Well, I'm still carrying 1. I take care of the other 2.
Where are their fathers?
My daughter's dad is deceased, and my son's dad lives across town.
And you're still living in this house?
Yes.
Emily, you have to find another hobby. Making children is not a hobby.
I know.
Let's get to the car part.
I offered to pay him back $500 a couple weeks later at Red Lobster on the 12th of April. And he declined my money. I had the money for him. He said no.
What did he say?
He said, no, I don't want your money. I want the car. I have the title right here. And these are the things they forged.
You have the car, right?
Yep.
So try yes. It sounds
Yes.
nicer. You know, how many children do you have?
I have 1.
You have 1 now.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Did he offer you $500?
No, he said he was willing to pay me $500 for it, but he didn't have it then.
Oh, but you said you had it.
I did have it.
Well, that's what he wants. He wants the $500. So you have no problem with that?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Now let's talk about the rent. Ms. Dennis, when did Mr. Eby move out?
April 9th. He walked out.
Why?
He told me he's taken his daughter to his aunt's house and never returned.
Did you change the locks?
No.
What month's rent are you claiming that he owes you?
Well, I paid April's myself, and I've paid May's.
But he wasn't there in May.
Well, yeah.
Why didn't he pay any of April's rent?
Because I got my paycheck from work, and I paid it because he was in between jobs, and he didn't have a paycheck at the time to pay it.
Did you move out on April? Why are you laughing?
Because I never technically moved out of there. I came home. Locks were changed.
When?
On the 14th of April.
Okay, so how much was your half of the rent?
I paid all the rent.
In April?
Yes. All she gets for a check is from welfare.
Who paid April's rent? Do you have a rent receipt for April's rent?
Nope. She would have it. Because I don't have nothing because she wouldn't allow me back in the house.
I see the receipt. Did you give her cash to pay the rent?
Yep.
Let's try that again.
Yes.
Mr. Eby, these two women may find you irresistible. I guarantee you I do not.
Okay.
The only month that I'm interested in is April. The only month that you show me on a receipt for rent for April, every other receipt is nice and clear. The month, the date is nice and clear. The only date that there's something written over is April. I mean, didn't you think that I'd notice that?
I picked them up.
What happened here?
I don't know. I didn't look
Well,
at 'em.
I don't know either. You get money from social services?
No.
Other than your job, how do you support yourself?
My son's dad pays child support.
You get Social Security for your son, for your child whose father is dead?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because he didn't work.
Another winner. You help her?
More than we should, but yeah.
What is she going to do after her lease is up?
She's moving into our house.
Who else lives in your house, Mr. Dennis?
All of them. That's why I drive a truck.
You have 3 children? 3
Yes.
children?
Mhm.
She the only one with children?
No,
How many of the others have children?
all of them.
Mr. Dennis, you missed the class on teaching your children birth control.
No, they missed a class on listening.
They missed the class on listening. All right, now, Mr. Eby, you have a counterclaim, if
Well,
my
I'd
memory
like
is
to go back
correct.
for a second.
What?
Things they had forged.
You mean forged with regard to the car?
Yeah.
Listen to me very carefully. Put that down, sir. Put the papers down. Other than the fact that you told me that you agreed to pay him back, and you said to him, here's $500. I'm going to pay you back for the car, I would have ruled in your favor because there was no loan agreement. But you agreed to pay him back. So you're going to pay him back, and I don't care if they forged the Declaration of Independence. You're going to pay him back for the car.
I offered him, he said no.
Now he says yes. Now you're going to pay him back for the car. Not for the rent. She lived there. She's going to take care of the rent. And she has taken care of the rent. Now, let's get to your counterclaim.
My counterclaim is for my living room set that she still has. My entertainment stand, TV, VCR, movies, Xbox, etc. Washer and dryer.
Now, did he purchase all of those things?
No, he didn't.
Who purchased them?
I did.
All of them?
Yes.
Let me see the receipts.
I don't have receipts. I didn't think I was going to get into a situation like
Well,
this.
just a second. When you moved into the house, he was already living there. So I want you to be very careful with what you tell me. Your father is a backup, and your father and I are almost soulmates here. Do you understand, Miss Dennis? You moved into his house, and of course, according to you, his wife left. He was still living there, and a couple of weeks later, you move in.
Yes.
With your 2 children. Did he have furniture in his place when you moved in?
He gave it all to his wife.
Everything?
Yes, I even had to provide a bed for his daughter.
Mr. Dennis, did Aaron over here have any furniture?
Yes, he did. He did, but he
Stop doing that.
he threw tantrums once in a while, and he'd start throwing his furniture out of the house, and then by the garbage, and then they'd pick it up and haul it off. He did that a lot.
What did your daughter move in with?
Well, we carried a Big screen TV in there, sofa love seat, her bedroom set, her daughter's bedroom set, and her son's bedroom set. That's what we
What
moved.
about a washer dryer?
That was already in there.
Is that yours? You want it back? Done. What else do you say that's there, sir?
TV, VCR, movies, Xbox, couch.
Well, just a second. How many TVs were in the house?
1.
That's hers.
Nope, hers got repoed.
First of all, we have 4 TVs in our home.
Oh, you do? Well, one of them must belong to him.
We can
And he can have it. It is downstairs.
Oh, fine.
That's not the TV.
Listen to me. You're lucky I'm listening to this at all. Because you two have to find another hobby. You have enough children for a while. Caused enough damage.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
I told her that I didn't understand why she would do something like she had done. He had done everything to help her. It really hurt.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Emily Dennis and her father, Rodney Dennis, are suing the father of Emily's unborn child, Aaron Eby, for rent, bills, and the value of a car. Aaron is countersuing for the return of his furniture.
Washer, dryer, and TV. He's going to pick it up 5 days from today.
Okay.
Do you speak to him?
No.
Do you?
No, but I can. I mean, it won't bother me.
Fine. Then why don't you?
He knows my number.
Why don't you make arrangements to go and get it?
All right.
So, I read your answer, Mr. Eby, and according to you, you're not even sure that this baby that Miss Dennis is having is yours. I have a feeling it is. But I'm sure you're going to do a paternity test.
Yes.
Which is a very good idea. And that means that the two of you are going to be joined in some way for the next couple of decades. So I suggest you start to act responsibly and reasonably towards each other. And he has a very calming effect. At least he did on me. He had a very calming effect. So I suggest you keep him as a friend. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do the right thing with him. He's tried to do the right thing with you. Got it?
Yes.
Good. You took him back?
Yeah, I did.
No, I didn't. Just, yeah, I did is fine.
Yes, I
Good.
did.
Shh, say nothing. Sit down. You taking him back is your problem, not mine. Very good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500 on the counterclaim. You'll have the property as I outlined it in 5 days, and Mr. Dennis will take care of seeing to it that it's picked up. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He went out to my car, stole the bill of sale, forged my name on it,
He moved in 2 weeks after I left. He was no good.
trying to get me a ticket because the cops were going to write me a ticket for possession of a stolen vehicle.
He left me for his drug addict wife. All the furniture was ours. I'm carrying his child.
Yeah, I'd like to have him be part of it, but, you know, if he ain't, I can pick up the pieces from there.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Kirkland versus Polson, step forward, please.
Linda Kirkland is suing her daughter, 19-year-old Laura Polson, for the balance on a car. Laura says her mother agreed to make payments while she was going through a divorce.
Miss Kirkland, this is your daughter. What's your first name?
Laura.
Your complaint says that you purchased a car for her with the understanding that she would make the payments on the car.
Correct.
But then you stopped making payments on the car. The car was, in fact, totaled, and your mother is out in excess of $5,000. Yes. That we agree on. Is that right? So what I'd like you to do is tell me what your defense is.
Well, the only reason why I stopped making payments is because I fell into financial. I got divorced and had to move back home. She said I could move back home with her. So I moved back in with her, and she said that until I got a job and I got back stable on my feet, that I wouldn't have to pay her the monthly payments on the car, that it would be okay. She would help me out as my mom, you know, she would help me out.
Well, that was nice of her.
Right.
So you moved home, and you were how old?
19.
And what were you doing?
Well, I didn't get a job until my 19th birthday, and I moved home in September.
When did you get a job?
In October.
Well, that's a month.
Right.
Were you paying rent?
No.
So whatever money you were earning, you had for yourself.
Right. Well, I had accumulated a lot of bills while I was married, and he wasn't helping me pay them.
Like what?
Well, there was 3 credit card bills, our wedding rings we were still paying off, a watch that he had bought, and we had also a second car. And in November...
Who was driving the second car?
He kept it when I left him in September. he wouldn't release the car to me. It wasn't in my name, it was in his name and my mother's name. So the cops wouldn't release it to me.
Well, if they would release it to your mother.
Right. But she just said it would just be better if I took the Honda and he took the Expedition and he would pay for that. And I would pay her for the Honda once I got more stable.
Well, now you're getting stable. So what happened?
Well, in October I got a job, and she said I still don't have to pay her. I could wait a couple more months until at least some of my bills were close to getting paid off.
What?
Well, I didn't actually let her not pay the car payment for a few months to let her get caught up on bills, but she had pretty much destroyed the car, and I let her not pay it so she could build up money for the deductibles for all of the damage that was done to the car.
What kind of damage did you do to the car?
She got assaulted before she got married. The guy came back and did more damage to the vehicle, so there were 2 claims there. And then Good Samaritan took a friend home from a party in the middle of the night and caused an accident. And so the car was pretty messed up. So I let her...
You left that all out?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're in December. What happens in December, Miss Paulson?
Well, in November, Jeremy had been being late on the other car payments, so my mom took it back from him and let me drive that. And I was making payments on that because we have a loan on that. So she said it'd be better to pay for that instead of getting it repossessed, and you just wait on the Honda a little bit more until you could afford both.
So how many payments did you make on Jeremy's car?
I think I paid on it November and December.
What do you mean you think?
I'm not real sure.
How many car payments did you make?
I think 1.
Where is that car now?
Her husband has it.
He caught up on the payments, or
He is caught up on the payments. She pretty much abandoned it on January 1st. We got into a big fight. She took off in the Honda. Well, she didn't take off in the Honda. The police let someone come and take her in the Honda because her license had been suspended.
For what?
I had got a speeding ticket.
And?
And they just sent me a notice that said that I had to pay until, or else my license would get suspended. So I sent the money in, and it still got suspended.
So what did you do about it?
Well, I was going to do traffic school, but they wouldn't let me do traffic school if you already did it in the last 18 months.
And you had done it in the last 18 months?
Yeah.
Because you had another speeding ticket?
No, because I had my accident. She had told you about
Sounds to me like you're an accident looking to happen. So far, I haven't heard a legitimate reason why you don't owe your mother this money.
Well, she had told me that I could wait until I was financially back on my feet. And I was paying for the Expedition, and I had went on a trip with my friends in December, and I guess she was mad because she didn't give me permission to go. So she was upset about it, and when I came back, I came back on January 1st, and when I woke up in the morning, there was steering wheel locks on both cars. So I walked to my friend's house, and they drove me over there, back to my mom's house, and I had brought in the police there to release the Honda to me because it's in my name.
There's no such word as brought in.
That's brought? Right.
Keep going.
And the cops came and they told her she had to release the Honda to me. And 2 days later, my friend was in it and he took off in it without my permission whatsoever. I had told him numerous times that he was not to even start my car.
And?
And he crashed it into a house and it was totaled.
Who do you live with now?
I live with my boyfriend.
Now we have a boyfriend. So you have a boyfriend and a husband. Is that right?
Well, I'm separated, legally separated. And I'm
you
waiting
mean you're
to
separated
go.
in court? A court issued an order of separation?
No.
Well, then you're not legally separated.
Well, I'm separated, but I have to go through the divorce. I did all my paperwork.
Listen to me. You're living with your boyfriend. What does he do for a living?
He's a mechanic.
You had to look up at the sky to figure out what he did? What does he do for a living?
He's a mechanic.
And what do you do?
I'm a secretary.
So why haven't you started to pay your mother back for the car?
I just got my job on Monday. And
what were you doing before that?
I haven't been working.
Why not?
I lost my job in December, and I've been looking for work.
Get a job as a packer in a grocery store. What are you doing, sitting home, doing nothing?
Well, I've been looking for a job. No one's called me back.
I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a job. What can I tell you? What do you still owe?
$6,165.52.
You understand that the limit court can order is $5,000 judgment. Is that right?
I understand that.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Now, it's case number 109 on the calendar in the matter of Rodriguez versus Taylor. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Mr. Rodriguez, how do you know Miss Taylor?
She worked at the same office with my wife. She was a co-worker.
Of your wife's?
Yes.
How long had you known her before you sold her a car?
I never knew her. I just got the phone number through my wife. She told my wife she was interested in a car and I was selling one, so I gave her a call.
And what kind of car were you selling?
It's a Malibu Classic 79.
And why were you selling it?
Because I needed the money, because I was unemployed.
And what were you and your wife going to be driving?
Oh, I had another car. I had 2 other cars.
What other kind of cars did you have, Mr. Rodriguez?
I had another 78 Malibu and another 79 Malibu.
You liked that car?
Yes, I like Malibus.
And this is what you want. You sold Miss Taylor the car for $2,000.
Yes.
And because you say you felt sorry for her because she was a single mother, you agreed to let her make payments on it. $500 down, and then she gave you another $100. So far she's paid $600 towards the car.
Yes.
And then, according to you, she let you know she didn't want the car and she wanted her money back. You're suing her for breach of contract.
Yes.
You want her to pay the rest of what she owes on the car. And you're suing her because you say she did damage to the car.
Yes, she did.
Because you repossessed the car.
Yes,
So
I
now
did.
you have the car
Yes.
and her $600.
No.
Where's her $600?
When she gave them to me, I was unemployed, and I had to pay people back and give my wife money.
Listen to me. I don't mean that... Mr. Rodriguez, I don't mean necessarily that you still have the $600 in your possession. You didn't give it back to her. So you have the car and her $600.
No. She gave me $600 down. Then she said that she didn't want it no more.
So did you give her the $600 back?
No.
You spent it.
I spent some of the money, and I offered her $200. I said, that's all I have now. But I didn't have the car. When she called me, she still had it.
I want to know if you gave her any of her money back that she kept.
No, she wouldn't let me give her
So
anything.
then you have the car.
No, I don't have the car in my possession.
Who has the car?
I have it now because I repossessed it after.
This had to be my 9th case of the day. I don't want you to say anything, Mr. Rodriguez. I just want you to listen to me and believe what I tell you.
Okay.
You currently have her $600 and the car that you sold her.
Okay, I do.
And you're suing her for the rest of the money and because you say she did damage to the car. You got it?
Oh, I got it.
What's the Blue Book value of this car, Mr. Rodriguez?
I don't know.
Well, let's find out. 1979 Chevy Malibu. Do you think we could get that information,
Sure.
Officer Byrd? Thank you very much.
Can I say something? It all depends on how you fix the car. You can restore any car and make it look good and make it worth money. I had it nice.
Not according to her.
Okay.
Miss Taylor, on what date did you initially see this car?
On March 24th.
And you agreed to pay him $2,000 for the car? And when did you tell him that there were problems with the car?
March 25th, the next day.
What was wrong with it?
The blinkers weren't working, the speedometer, the roof was coming down, and also...
when you say the roof was coming down, what do you mean the roof
it was
coming
tacked up, and I didn't realize it was tacked up.
Was it a convertible?
No.
She's talking about the upholstery.
Yeah, the upholstery was tacked up.
With what?
With thumbtacks.
This is the car that you restored, Mr. Rodriguez? Shh, shh. You tacked up the interior with thumbtacks?
No, look. The car, the interior is all red. You know, it has the okay, what happened was from the windows being open, it was starting to come out. So I did put some red ones in there, some little ones, the round ones. Not the long ones they use in school, in elementary. I mean, that's what she's trying to say. Trying to make it seem like. I had it red ones, you couldn't even see them. And that day when she got it, she's like, what's up with this? And I told her, but just, you know, it's coming down, you can fix it yourself, that's it. She never asked about blinkers, nothing.
Wait, what do you mean she didn't ask about blinkers? When you buy a car, you say your blinkers work? Is that what you're asking?
When I buy a car, I make sure I ask, hey, is there any malfunctions? Make sure the lights work, everything. The radio, whatever I need to know. You know, she didn't ask any questions. She just wanted a car.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Rodriguez?
Right now I'm unemployed, but I'm a machinist.
Take your hands off your hips. How long have you been unemployed?
For a few months.
So who supports you, your wife?
I just do side jobs or whatever I had to
What
do.
does that mean you do side jobs? You say your wife works. She's a co-worker of hers. So if you don't work, then your wife supports you.
Well, she supports me.
You have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
3.
So your wife supports you, she supports your 3 children, and she works full time. And she takes care of the house?
No, I take care of the house.
I doubt that.
And the kids, everything.
Sure.
Can I say something?
Sure.
When I got there, I looked at the car. He had taken out the speakers. There's 2 holes in the back of the trunk. And he was inside the trunk trying to hold it up. He said he was going to fix that. And then he said that the gasket on the left side was fixed, but the right side was missing. He said he would fix it.
Miss Taylor, you're not much of a business person. What did Mr. Rodriguez say when you said, I want to return the car after one day?
He said, well, I don't have the money right now. And I was like, oh.
Because he spent it.
Yeah. He said that he owed people, or he was going to put it in the bank, but then he told me that day I called him that he put it into his other car.
Into his other car? So, do we have any figure?
Nope.
Doesn't go back that far.
Don't go back that far.
Judge.
You got an 87.
What does the 87 show?
It said $0.
So it says the 87 is worth nothing.
Pretty much. Unless it's in fantastic condition.
Not kept together by thumbtacks.
Pretty much.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're buying a car that's 25 years old, and you're dumb enough to pay $2,000 for it. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve what you get.
And later today,
You should kiss the ground right where you're standing and say, I'm going to be smarter next time. The next time I wait 10 years to have a guy move in with me, I'm going to know him more than 2 weeks. And it's not going to be a recent parolee from state's prison.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Fernando Rodriguez claims Tracy Taylor owes for breach of contract and damages to a '79 Chevy Malibu. Tracy is countersuing for the return of $600.
Miss Taylor, what did he say to you about getting the money back to you?
He said that he's not working right now. He already put the money into his car and give him about a week. If he couldn't come up with it in a week, he'll borrow it from a relative or family
That's what he
member.
told you. And how much after that did he come and pick up the car?
About 3 weeks later, because the end of that week I called him and he said that he barely got a job, so I'm thinking like at least a week or every 2 weeks you get paid. So I waited 2 more weeks, and then he said he lost his job or something.
But he did initially say to you when you called, he said, I don't have the money.
Yeah.
But give me some time, and I'll get it to you. And then he took the car back.
I didn't know he took the car back.
How did you find out he took the car back?
Oh, because I got home, and then I took a nap, and then I went to take my mom to work, and I looked, and it wasn't there.
Mr. Rodriguez, your lawsuit is for breach of contract. You say that she made a contract with you and she didn't fulfill her obligations under the contract. Your lawsuit against her is dismissed. It's dismissed for the following reason, because I find that you agreed to take the car back and give her back her money. Ordinarily, Miss Taylor, I couldn't help you because you buy a used car as is. If you're buying a car that's 25 years old and you're dumb enough to pay $2,000 for it, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve what you get. However, he's a slick character. He got $600 from you for this car. He should have been walking home, clicking his heels and saying, $600, it's worth less than zero, and I got $600 for it. So he should have been happy. Now he's got you $600 and he's got his car. Put your hand down. Ordinarily, in a court, in all probability, you would get nothing. However, I believe you when you say that Mr. Rodriguez agreed to take the car back when you called him the next day and said, listen, everything is falling apart in this car. I want the $600. I believe you when you say that he told you, I can't give it all back to you because I put some in my car, because that's what an idiot would do who has 3 children and no job. They would take a piece of $600 and put it in their car and get woofers or tweeters or speakers because he's got nothing else to do with his time but play with his cars. So I believe you when he promised to return your money, and he didn't do that. So his claim is dismissed. You get nothing, zero, except you have your car. So you can go find somebody else who might want to buy your car, Mr. Rodriguez, because on her counterclaim, she's getting back her $600.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
As far as our students, you may step out.
Because of ignorant people and they're laughing, I couldn't even give my proof.
I'm just really happy that, you know, even though I was kind of naive to the whole situation, that it's finally over with, and she did believe me.
I offered her $200 a day. She didn't want it, and she told me, no, I want the full.
He didn't offer $200 a day. He offered $200 when the police were there.
The way she is, she likes to work people.
As soon as I got in the car and hit my head and something fell down, I was like, no, it's not for my baby.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McCormick versus Havens. Step forward, please.
Sherry McCormick is suing her ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Jason Havens, for a series of unpaid loans. Sherry says she moved Jason in only weeks after his release from prison.
Miss McCormick, did you and Mr. Havens ever live together?
Yes, we did.
When?
From about October till March.
October of 2004 until March of 2005?
Yes, ma'am.
Had he been in prison before that?
Yes.
How long were you incarcerated, Mr. Havens?
4 years.
For what?
Burglary and robbery.
Is this the first time you were in jail?
Yes.
How did you meet?
At a bar.
How long had you been out of when you met Miss McCormick?
2 weeks.
Where had you been living?
I was staying with my father at the time being.
Where are you working now, Mr. Havens?
I just do side roof jobs, work under the table, doing roofing, construction.
You're not supposed to say in front of 10 million people, sir, including the IRS, that you're being paid under the table. I'm just suggesting that to you. I didn't ask you that question, whether you were paid under the table. So you don't necessarily, be smart, you don't necessarily have to volunteer that information. Do you understand? How much after you met him did he move in with you, Miss McCormick?
It was a few weeks. We had a first date a week later, and then it was a few weeks after that he moved in.
And you live with your daughter?
Yes.
NS. You know what NS means? Not smart.
I know. I know.
Really not smart. Because I assume that since Mr. Havens is so honest with me, he told you that he had been released from prison 2 weeks before? That he had been in prison for burglary and robbery?
Well, that wasn't the story that I heard in the beginning.
He wasn't in prison for working under the table?
No, he wasn't.
Okay, and you don't get 4 years for a first-time offense?
I don't know the court system that well, but...
all right, but you do watch television.
Yes.
That's what educates most people. Didn't educate you enough because you allowed him to move into your house with your daughter. Is this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Miss McCormick. It's your claim that you made a series of loans to Mr. Havens.
Yes.
During the time that he was living there with you. Mr. Havens says, yes, you did give him money. He was getting back on his feet, and you were more than happy to help him to do that.
That wasn't the case. They were loans.
Let me hear about them, Miss McCormick. I'm going to have to make a judgment about that.
I believe the first one was he came home one night and he had a fat lip. He had been in a gambling game and lost $250. And I had heard some of the voice messages from these people who were after him. And I didn't want to see anything happen to him, so he asked to borrow the money. I, as a matter of fact, had to borrow $100 of it from my grandmother to give him.
When was this?
That was in October, early November.
Keep going.
During the period of time, he would come to me and ask me for $20 here, $10 there, ask me for money to go see his daughter, to do things with his daughter, and at one time he ended up at a party with his cousin with the money that I had loaned him to do something with his daughter.
And when was that?
Probably in November.
November. All righty. So let's see what we got. We've got someone that you met in a bar that moved in with you 2 weeks later who had been released from prison after serving 4 years. During that same month, he comes home after a gambling debt leaves him bloodied, according to you. You have people calling and leaving voice messages, and those people are saying that they're going to cut him off at the knees unless he gives them this $250, whatever.
Yeah.
So you borrow money from your grandmother to get him out of that fix, and then you continue to live with him. When you start giving him more money, 20 here, 10 there, and then some money to go and visit his daughter, and you find out that he ended up at a party with a friend and didn't use the money for the visit with his daughter. That's in November. Let's go to the next one.
I had gone to Florida, and he house sat for me. He asked for money while I was in Florida, and I left him money. And while I was in Florida, he ran out of money, so I had called my dad's girlfriend, and she took him over another 20. You know, all this was in promise that when he got his money from his loan from school that he would pay me back.
Is that right?
No, it's not right.
Nah! Don't believe a word of that, Miss McCormick. You've got to start using your brains. How many men have you had living in your house with your daughter in the last 10 years?
The only one.
Only him?
Yes.
You were certainly holding out, and you waited for some, and you got some bargain.
I'm not
you got
saying I
yourself
didn't make a big mistake.
the real pick of the litter. You bought a car from her, is that right?
Yes.
Did you give her any money down?
I gave her an $800 down payment and agreed to pay the rest of the $2,000 monthly.
She took the car back.
Yeah, before the first payment.
Did he give you $800 towards the car?
No, he did not.
How much did he give you?
He didn't give me anything.
She's not going to admit to it. I gave her $800. I gave her 50s and 100s because I got it out of my school loan check. That was the whole point of me getting the loan, so I could get a car. And she was the perfect opportunity for me to get a car, so I got it from her.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Sure.
He made it a point to have his father mail me a check so he would have a receipt for the first payment. And if he gave me $800 supposedly, I would think he would have wanted a receipt for it also.
That was before I moved out, before she went crazy and tried to go to my friends' houses and try to find me everywhere every night.
Which I
Ms.
did
McCormick,
not do.
He doesn't have a counterclaim for this $800. He just says, listen, I bought a car from her, I gave her some cash. She repossessed the car because I didn't finish paying, because I didn't pay for it.
The day
she just
before
didn't want me
it
to
was
have
even
it
due.
anymore. She
Yeah.
repossessed the car. So he doesn't have a counterclaim. I don't have to even believe that he gave you $800. All I have to believe is, from your perspective, is whether or not you advanced him this money with an expectation of being repaid. I don't believe any sane person who's 43 years old, who has a teenage daughter, who runs a house, first gives him $250, then without getting a penny back, gives him more money a couple of weeks later, and then a couple of months later, without getting any more money back, gives him more money and has a legitimate expectation of being repaid. I don't believe that you had a legitimate expectation of being repaid.
I did,
I
Your
think
Honor.
you made a big mistake, and the big mistake was letting him move in. The big mistake was not the few $100 that you gave him over the course of the months that he was living there. And you should kiss the ground right where you're standing that he left your house and left your house intact and left you intact and left your daughter intact. And say, I'm going to be smarter next time. The next time I wait 10 years to have a guy move in with me, I'm going to know him more than 2 weeks. And it's not going to be a recent parolee from state's prison. Your lawsuit is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Now, this is case number 115 on the calendar, the matter of Ari versus Peterson. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
All right, Mr. Ari, the defendant is the now ex-boyfriend of your now current girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that when he found out that you were involved with his then girlfriend, he vandalized your car. Mr. Peterson says, I didn't do it.
Right.
When did he vandalize your car, sir?
March 23rd, but it happened, I didn't find out. It happened until the 24th, the following morning.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding him vandalizing your car.
That day we got home from work.
Who's we?
Me and Jennifer. I went to her apartment. It was probably around 11 to 12 that night. When he came, I was inside with her sister watching television. I heard them arguing. The door comes swinging open. I see her flying to the side, and he comes rushing in. And at the time, I'm lying on the ground watching television. They just moved into the apartment, and he runs up with his hands balled in the fist, facial mannerism, just like, you know, very aggressive, and I can tell he wanted, you know, to fight or something like that. So I stood up.
Had you ever seen him before?
No, I never saw him in
Never
my
met.
life.
So you
Never
stood
met
up.
the guy. So, yeah.
And when you stood up, what happened?
Oh, when I stood up, his whole mannerism changed real
Right.
quick. I was like, what's the problem, you know? And at this time, I started taking off my watch, and he looks at me, he's like, oh, I just want to ask you a question. So we walk outside.
What were you
and,
taking your watch off for?
Well, you know, I want to know what time it was, man, you know? So,
Why were you taking your watch off?
well, it was a nice watch, and I just didn't want to mess it up. So,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, he follows me outside, and he asked me, what's the deal between you and Jennifer? And I asked him, I was like, well, do you know who I am? He was like, no. And I was like, well, I don't know you either, and is Jennifer your girlfriend? And he kind of like paused and hesitated. I was like, is Jennifer your girlfriend? And he was like, well, I was like, well, dude, you know, I don't know you don't know me. You have to ask her. And I left him out there, and I went back inside.
Had Jennifer told you she had a boyfriend?
She told me that she broke up with him around December, January. That like he was assaultive, would hit her and stuff like that. She just got tired
So
of
she
it.
told you at the time she invited you over that
Yeah,
she didn't have a boyfriend.
Yes, we had been we known each other for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I ever been asked to come over to her house. It had been like a month before I even came over there. I started working where we work at in January.
Now tell me about the vandalism to your car.
Okay, well, after I left him outside, he did come back in again. He came back in and told her that he wanted to grab his stuff. And she was like, well, you don't have anything here, but whatever, take whatever you want and leave. After he went upstairs, taking whatever, he was up there for a while. When she went back up there, they started arguing again. I got tired of it, and I got up and I was like, look, is there a problem? And that's when he left. He finally left. And then Jennifer and her sister watched him through the window.
Don't tell me what they saw.
I'm sorry, man.
Jennifer, what did you see?
After he went outside, my sister and I were looking out the window. At that point, I seen him like walk around the car, and it looked like he was just dragging his finger along the sides of the car. And he just walked around the whole vehicle, and then I seen him just walk away and get in his truck and leave.
Did you tell Mr. Ari what you had seen?
No, I didn't tell Sean at that time because I didn't want them to fight any longer. And my little sister was there, and I didn't want her exposed to this. And I knew how upset Sean was about the whole thing, and how much more he would be upset if he knew that Billy was anywhere around his car.
Well, when did he find the damage to his car?
That following morning, ma'am.
Did you stay over that night?
Yeah, she asked me to because she said she was scared. So.
And when you went out in the morning, what did you find?
A nice little decoration around my car.
Can I see it, please? You have
Yes, ma'am.
pictures. Let's see. Did you speak to him about it?
Right after we called the cops and Sean and the cops left, I received a phone call from a private number on my cell phone, and it was Billy, and he was asking me, how's your friend's car? How's your friend's car? And saying, like, if I was to say anything, it's going to happen to my car, and that I was his and I would always be his and no one else's. I hung up, and he continued to call me back on private numbers, and I went ahead and called the cops.
Okay, I'll hear you.
On March 23rd, I went over to see Jennifer Gifford, who is now my ex-girlfriend. She was my girlfriend at the time. We talked about our relationship for the simple fact that I had just helped her move into this home. It was actually supposed to be me moving into the home, but it didn't turn out that way as her sister moved in. At that time, we were just discussing our relationship. She asked me what was going on. I asked her if everything was okay between us. Basically, I was expressing, like my love for her. She seemed pretty apprehensive to really speak to me at that point. She seemed just not her usual self. I dated her for about three and a half years.
You knew before that things were not right, Mr. Peterson, because you were supposed to, according to you, move into this apartment together. She had been in this apartment for a month, and you weren't living with her. So you knew something wasn't right a month ago.
Well, I have a child.
How old is the child?
3 years old, and that was a complication at hand.
So you knew that things weren't right between the two of you for at least a month.
She actually lived with me in my home, and things were good. We didn't have any complications.
When she moved into her own place and you weren't living with her, you knew that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you go over there for at such a late hour?
She received a diamond ring from me. March, when I went over the 23rd.
When did she receive a diamond ring from you?
Christmas.
Okay.
Okay. When I went over there the 23rd of March, discussing issues in regards to our relationship, this gentleman here, the plaintiff, exited the doorway asking me who I was at that time. Now we got myself, this gentleman, and her outside in a very awkward situation. I asked her who was he. She didn't respond. He asked me who I was, and I told him.
What did you tell him?
I said, I'm her boyfriend. Who are you?
Why you went over there so late, sir?
Well, because usually I stay the night there, and I had stayed the night there like several days prior to this circumstance.
Did you take the engagement ring?
Yes.
Get to what happened when you left.
She actually, during the time that we spoke outside, all three of us, me and him didn't come to any terms of agreement whatsoever. We didn't even discuss anything. I asked her if this was the way it's going to be, if I can get my belongings. She allowed me to enter the house. I went and got all my belongings. I had shoes, pajamas, had the ring. I walked downstairs holding all my belongings. And this gentleman was waiting there by the door. And when I walked by him with my stuff, he basically, quote unquote, said, the next time we meet, it ain't gonna be nice. Closing the door at that time, slamming it, saying, it was an indicator like, you're not welcome here. So at that point, I got in my vehicle, I left home. I heard from Mrs. Gifford the next morning. She contacted me. She said, you know, Sean is accusing you of messing up his car. I said, I didn't do anything like that, okay? And you should know me better than that. We were together 3 years. I never did anything like that. So basically, that's how it went. And
What do you think keyed his car?
I don't know. It's a new neighborhood, so I really wasn't sure. Like I said, I'd made sure that, you know, when I moved her in.
Who are you?
Excuse me, I'm Billy's mother. My name is Anna Peterson.
You know anything about this case?
I know some. Jennifer Gifford called me that next day, and she said, I think Billy keyed my friend's car. And I says, why didn't you call us and say, Billy's over here, there's a problem? She had no response. I replied, you know us for 3 years. You know we don't condone any kind of negative behavior. She proceeded to cry and say it wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I said, no, Jennifer, you've been in my family for 3.5 years. I've come to love you, and it isn't supposed to be like this, okay? So prior to that, the day before, she had come to my home with my grandchild. Now, if they're not a couple, what is she doing with my grandbaby? She's come to my home the day prior to this happening, this incident. She has my granddaughter. I sit down and we have a heart-to-heart talk. I said, Jennifer, how are things with you and Billy? She says, we are working things out. I said, are you dating a certain individual? Not this gentleman. She replied, no. So at that point, I didn't feel there was a problem at all because they had still been seeing each other. She had been with us in March.
Jennifer, I have a question for you, dear.
Yes.
You didn't tell this gentleman, uncross your hands. You didn't tell Mr. Ari
Yes, ma'am.
about what happened that night. He stayed all night.
Correct.
Correct? Now, private number called.
Yes.
And you say you spoke to Mr. Peterson.
Correct.
And then he kept calling.
Mm-hmm.
And you kept taking the phone calls, or did you let it go to voicemail?
I took a couple and then I stopped. I called the cops. They came and took a report and went and spoke to him and told him he needed to stop calling me and that if he came back to my house, he would be arrested for trespassing.
Did the police tell you to stop calling her?
Yes. They contacted me through the telephone, and they said that Mrs. Gifford has stated that you and her are not going to be in a relationship anymore, so please do not have any more contact or show up at her home. I said, yes, sir. That's not a problem.
What would make her call the police, Mr. Peterson?
I believe it lays down a foundation in which there's no pertinent evidence in which can be held against me in this predicament. I mean, given the circumstance at hand, I've been accused of vandalizing a car, and she asked me the next morning if I was okay.
Listen to me, Mr. Peterson. There are only two people that could have vandalized that car. One was you, and one was Jennifer. Now, if Jennifer had a sick pathology, she could have said, listen, when he's sleeping, I'm going to go out, I'm going to vandalize his car, I'm going to key his car, and then I'm going to be able to get rid of Mr. Peterson once and for all because he's going to stay away from me. She would have to be pretty nutty to do that. But those are the only two people, in my judgment, who are going to do it. Her sister wasn't going to do it. Her sister doesn't care whether she's seeing you, whether she's seeing him. She doesn't care. I just don't see her doing that, Mr. Peterson.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
I told them they could go down there and play with the foosball table, but they were to not touch anything that was marks and to stay away from the motorcycle.
Any of you children touch the motorcycle?
No, ma'am.
he was angry, but claims he didn't do it.
You certainly had the opportunity to key his car. And after what you discovered that evening when you arrived at her house, there's no question you had the inclination to key his car. You weren't going to fight him because after he stood up, you figured you weren't going to get the best of this deal.
Probably not.
Probably not. So what's the next best thing to a young man's heart is his car. What kind of an estimate did you get to fix your car, sir?
The cheapest one was to cover up just the scratch without painting it, the whole car.
So, Mr. Peterson, in civil cases, courts have to decide, not beyond a reasonable doubt, that would be a criminal case as to whether you were guilty of vandalism, but whether there is more evidence than not. By a preponderance of the evidence, more evidence than not as to whether or not I believe you keyed his car. Mr. Peterson, I believe you keyed his car. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,200. That's all.
Thank you, Parties are excused. You may step out.
When you date someone for a while, they may end up cheating on you. It's basically what happened to me, and they kind of got together and orchestrated the plan.
We didn't start dating until just recently, so, and that happened in March.
He was threatening me and making it a jokingly manner of how my friend's car was.
She got caught, and now she don't know what to do about it.
Where I'm from, we don't scratch guys' cars, so, and me and him aren't from the same town.
I'm just glad it's done and over with, and we don't have to deal with him anymore.
Like I said, it just goes to show, be careful who you date.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Mason versus Fleck. Step forward.
21-year-old Mark Mason is suing his mother's friend, Michael Fleck, for damage to a motorcycle and snowboard. Mark says Michael's children are the culprits.
Is this your mother?
Yes, it is.
Just step up, please. How old are you, Mr. Mason?
I'm 21.
Where do you live?
I live at my dad's and my mom's house, kind of between the both of them.
When did this incident happen with your motorcycle and snowboard?
February of this winter.
And where were you living in February?
On the weekends, I was staying at my mom's house, and during the week at my dad's because it's closer to school.
Father have a house?
Yes, he does.
But you stored a motorcycle and a surfboard in the basement at your mother's house?
It was a motorcycle and a snowboard.
Snowboard?
Yep.
Now, Miss Mason, how do you know Mr. Fleck?
We dated a few years ago.
And he came to visit you in February?
Correct.
With his 3 children?
Yes.
What was the weather like the day he came to visit?
It was winter, so in Minnesota and Wisconsin, snowy and cold.
So the children were playing indoors?
Correct.
When did they ask you if they could go down to play in the basement?
I had shown them a tour of the home, and they saw Mark has a foosball table down there, and they had seen the foosball table and wanted to go down and play with the foosball table.
So what did you say?
I told them they could go down there and play with the foosball table, but they were to not touch anything that was Mark's and to stay away from the motorcycle.
And you told that to 3 little children?
Correct.
And then you were upstairs entertaining Mr. Fleck?
We had ordered pizza, so we were waiting for the pizza to get delivered.
Okay. This is your lawsuit, Mr. Mason.
Yep.
The lawsuit wants Mr. Fleck to pay for damage allegedly done by his 3 children when they were playing with a box downstairs in the basement, playing in a big old box. And they bumped up against either your snowboard or your bicycle and caused damage to your bicycle.
That's correct.
Right? He's not going to pay for that.
Whose responsibility would it be?
Your mother's.
Why is that?
You were storing items in your mother's house. She had the opportunity to say to Mr. Fleck's children, do not go down to the basement. They would not have gone down to the basement without her permission. If they hadn't been down there playing, then the property would not have been damaged. And your mother had total control over that.
Even though it was an accident on their behalf, it's not their responsibility?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, I would like to say that at first, Mr. Fleck agreed to pay for the damages upon getting an estimate, and he even listed me as a debt on claiming bankruptcy.
Did you declare bankruptcy, sir?
I'm in the process now, ma'am, yes.
How much did Mr. Mason tell you that the damage was to his property?
The first figure I received was $250.
When did you receive that figure?
Say 2 weeks after this incident occurred.
Did you tell him that you would pay the $250?
No, ma'am. I said I would talk to my children.
Then why did you list him as a creditor?
I was told to do so by my attorneys.
You mean any possible person that you might owe money to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you originally tell Mr. Fleck, Mr. Mason, that the damage was $250?
Yeah, I called around to get
The
estimates.
answer is either yes or no.
Yes,
Then why are you suing him for $877.46?
because once I went to the dealer and got the estimates, that's what they came back as. That was my estimate at first. Me, not the dealer.
Did you tell that to Mr. Fleck?
I did. That was just some online researching that I did.
I don't think he owes you anything. And he says he didn't agree to pay you. He said he just listed you in his bankruptcy because in the event that you got a judgment against him, he wanted to be covered. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Any of you children touch the motorcycle?
Nope. No, ma'am. No,
Were you playing in a big cardboard box?
I was.
That's what happens when kids play.
So they're not responsible for their damages?
Your mother gave them permission to go downstairs, sir. Your mother gave them permission to go downstairs. And if what happened down there was an accident, should have been covered by your homeowner's insurance if you had it. Do you have homeowner's insurance?
No, ma'am.
Should have. Or else your mother's going to fix it. She should not have let Mr. Fleck's children go downstairs if your property was downstairs and she knew it was valuable. You got it? Goodbye.
The parties are excused. You may step out. Now, this is case number 104 on the calendar in the matter of Burden versus Duncan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Burden, you were supposed to be married in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And according to your complaint, the defendant was a guest of a member of your wedding party.
Mm-hmm.
You were all supposed to be traveling from one place to another by plane. Where were you coming from?
We came from Flint, Michigan.
And you were going to Las Vegas?
Las Vegas.
Your complaint alleges that Miss Duncan, while you were waiting for the plane in Michigan, I assume.
In Atlanta.
That was a layover?
Mm-hmm.
Got drunk. And because she was drunk and unruly, your entire wedding party was thrown off the plane. You missed your wedding. All your deposits were lost. You're still not married, all because of her bad behavior.
That's true.
That's what you allege. Okay, so you hadn't met her before?
No.
Who was she the guest of?
My cousin Tiara.
Is she here today?
Yes, she is.
That's Tiara.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell me the story. I'm listening.
We got to Atlanta, and we were going to get on the next plane to get to Las Vegas. AirTran had overbooked each flight 15 to 20 people, so we had to wait for the next flight. We're on standby, so we're on a list.
Why were you on standby?
That's the buddy passes, they're standby tickets.
How many buddy passes did you have?
I had, for me and my fiance, his uncle and aunt, and my cousin and her 2 friends.
Where did you get them from?
Ibrahim, a friend of the family.
Ibrahim.
That's
He's
you.
here as a witness, too.
What's your last name, sir?
Abdul Rahim.
Mr. Rahim. Where did you get these buddy passes from?
I work for the airline. We get 6 buddy passes a year. Once Tiara said that she had a cousin going to get married, I tried to help him out. So I got them from 2 other friends that work for AirTran.
So you get 6 per year. How much do you pay for them?
They're $50.
So it's $350.
Yes.
Okay. Sit down. Okay. Go ahead.
So my fiance's uncle and aunt got on the plane. We had to wait for the 7:45 flight. My cousin Tiara and her friends decided to go drinking in the airport. Me and my fiance slept for a while, and then we woke up about 3. We were looking for them, and they were downstairs at a bar. They had already drank a bar tab of $79, and Heather and her friend left with this guy they met at the bar. They got back about 7, and we just made it up there in time to get on the 7:45 plane. The flight attendant said there was 5 seats left, and there was just 5 of us, but she miscounted. There was only 4 seats.
Okay, so there was one person who had to get off.
Yeah, but Miss Duncan was hollering and cursing at her, so she made everybody get off the plane. So we all get off the plane, and Heather's still at the bottom of the ramp arguing with this woman. The lady's closing the door. She's trying to open the door, and we're all walking up the ramp, and she's still down there arguing. So my fiance goes down there and tells her, come on, we have to go because the ramp's closed, and you can feel it pulling back. She takes off walking. We meet back up with her at the baggage claim, and she started cursing at the lady in the baggage claim, telling her that she's never been treated like that before, and she flies here and there. But we're on standby. You can't act a fool when you're on standby because you represent the person that gets you the ticket. So after I filled out my claim, I go outside, step outside for a cigarette. She comes running past me saying, stall the police, they're after me, and takes off. I'm sitting there like, what's going on? So I go back in. They got U.S. Homeland Security there, Atlanta police there, the airport police. They're looking for her. She calls my cousin on the phone telling her she's laying in the back of somebody's truck. And that's where it all went from there. So we had to call the reservations in the morning to see if we can get put on the next flight in the morning to go to Vegas. They canceled our tickets because of her actions. We had to purchase new tickets to go home. It was a mess.
It was a mess.
Yeah, disaster.
Okay. You remember what happened that day?
I do.
You remember everything that happened that day, Miss Duncan?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you drunk?
We had all been to the bar. We had all
I
been
didn't ask
drinking.
about anybody else. I only asked about you. Were you drunk?
I was not over my limit, no, ma'am.
You think you were able to drive a car?
No, I would not have drove a car, no, ma'am.
Well, then you were drunk. Then you were legally drunk if you would not have driven a car. Did you create a scene on the plane?
I did not.
Tell me what happened on the plane.
Well, we were on standby all day, like she said.
That's right. You were on standby all day, and now you're on, and they tell us one person
Didn't get
that they
on
have
the
to get
first
off.
flight. The second flight, 11:30 flight.
Get to the 7:45 flight.
Well, it's very pertinent to the situation because her fiance was cleared, got off, which made 5 people that now needed to board the last flight.
So there was an extra seat on the 11:30 flight.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
But you wanted to travel with your fiance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why didn't somebody else get on that flight?
By then, the ramp, they had unlocked the doors, and once you came out of the door, you could not go back in there after they shut and locked them.
Should have let him go. Then you wouldn't have had trouble, right?
But he came back looking for me.
I got it, Miss Burden. All I'm saying is if he had gone to Vegas, you all would have been in Vegas by that night, right? You know, Miss Drunk Out of Her Mind and all the other people who were drinking would have gotten there. Go ahead.
So the last flight out, 7:45 flight, 4 seats available. She says 4 of us can stay on the flight. 1 person's going to have to stay. Because of all the confusion, we all were turned off that flight. It came down to the last minute. At the door, she's still saying, we have to go. 4 of you can stay on the plane. 1 of you has to go. And all the confusion, we all were escorted off that plane.
Well, the confusion, Miss Burden suggests, is because of your bad behavior.
That is not true.
Were you on the plane?
Yes, ma'am.
Your last name is?
Island.
Tell me about her behavior.
When we got on the plane, we knew that there was 5 seats where there was supposed to be 5 seats available. The lady tells us that there's only 4 seats available. So when I find out there's 4 seats, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off, even though I know these are my cousins, the whole reason we're going, but there's 4 people that can go, and I knew that I would be able to get there in the morning. So I was like, I can just get off the plane. Heather grabs me and says, no, don't get off the plane. She's still trying to converse with the lady, and there's only 4 seats available. There was no way that there was going to be another seat, and there was another lady. She was trying to get her bags into the overhead compartment, and we're all trying to help her get the bags. Heather tells me to go sit in the lady's seat, and I'm like, why would I sit in her seat? She already has a seat, you know what I'm saying? So that's really what happened on the plane.
Good. You can sit down. You can stand up, sir. Why have you not yet married?
Money-wise, we saved for a whole year to go to Vegas to get married.
Well, what kind of deposits did you have there?
I have receipts for everything that I put a deposit on and paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And I have police reports and statements from the Atlanta Police Department and Air
I'd like to see
Airways.
the police report, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I think that when you cause somebody that kind of aggravation, there has to be some punitive action.
I honestly don't feel so. The fact
Well, I don't give a rat's behind what you think.
And later today,
I did not have enough money to pay the whole
Why did you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Alicia Burden claims her cousin's friend, Heather Duncan, caused her and her wedding party to be kicked off an airplane. Alicia says she had to cancel her wedding.
Well, this is a letter from Airways, directed to this gentleman who was employed by them, and it says, this is to notify you that your non-revenue and reduced rate travel privileges have been suspended for 180 days. This action is being taken as a result of an investigation into an incident concerning an individual traveling on your buddy pass under itinerary whatever. The individual in question is Miss Heather Duncan, that would be you, exhibited unprofessional and abusive conduct both towards our passengers and your fellow crew members. And you are responsible for all actions for your guest passenger, and you are responsible for notifying your past traveler of all policy and procedures. Well, you don't have to be notified to behave like a human being. They found that your conduct caused him to lose his privileges for 180 days. Can't hold your booze. And then the woman down at the luggage department says that you threw a pen and paper at her. You behaved very badly, Miss Duncan.
We had been at the airport for 13 hours. We were all very frustrated.
Nobody else caused the same kind of scene that you did.
That's right. We were all very frustrated. Everybody was crying. Everybody was cussing. Our luggage was gone. I was the one that had to step up, talk to the lady about the luggage.
No,
I did.
You didn't talk to anybody.
I did.
You
I
were
lost my
screaming
temper.
profanity, and you lost your temper, and you threw a pen at her, and you threw paper at her. But I'm not so sure, Miss Burden, that all of you were thrown off because of her conduct.
Our tickets were canceled because of her.
You mean your buddy pass tickets?
Mhm.
So if you wanted to go to Vegas, you would have had to buy a ticket, purchase a ticket. Why didn't you do that?
We wouldn't have no money to get home.
What kind of work do you do?
I pack parts.
And you?
I'm a homemaker.
You are home together?
Yeah, we live together.
How long have you lived together?
About
8 years.
Yeah.
8 years. You have children, I assume?
Yes.
How many?
3.
Well, so there's no real big rush about getting married. This is not a, this is a marriage that's been coming on for 8 years.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with getting married in Michigan?
That's what we're going to do now.
Good. That's what you should do now.
Yeah.
You caused them a lot of aggravation, Miss Duncan. And I think that when you cause somebody that kind of aggravation, because you couldn't control your actions, there has to be some punitive action that's available.
I honestly don't feel so. The fact
Well,
of the
I
matter,
don't give a rat's behind what you think. This is not a touchy-feely situation, madam. They planned this day, planned to be in Las Vegas, planned to have a wedding, and because of your bad behavior, they weren't able to do that. And I think that you are responsible for some of the pain and suffering, although I usually don't even like to entertain those lawsuits because of your bad behavior. Not only that, but you caused him aggravation as well. You were the only stranger to this wedding party, and you didn't behave yourself. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
well, she did the best job she could, so, ain't really nothing I can do but keep it moving.
It was very upsetting. I didn't get married.
They should have gotten on the plane, and everything would have been fine.
She got issues and problems that she needs to seek counseling about.
They just wanted money. They got what they wanted, so, keep it moving.
The drunk ain't worth a piece of gum on the bottom of my shoe.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Acree versus Jones. Step forward, please.
28-year-old Karen Acree is suing her ex-boyfriend, Donald Jones, for rent and utility bills. Donald is countersuing for rent, lost wages, and a loan to get her stereo out of pawn.
Miss Acree, according to your complaint, you and Mr. Jones lived together for a period of time in a lease that you both signed.
That is correct.
There was a problem with an altercation that the two of you had. He was put out of the apartment. You claim he owes you some bills, some rent and utilities. Mr. Jones says that he paid up while he was living there. Once he was put out of the apartment, he has no intention of paying for rent and utilities. And he claims that you actually owe him money for some loans and assorted stuff. So he has a counterclaim. When did you move in together?
In July of 2004.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$650.
Who moved in?
Both of us did.
Anybody else?
My daughter.
So the three of you moved in?
Yes, she's 5 years old.
You get child support for her?
Barely, but yes.
What was the financial arrangements you had with Mr. Jones?
He signed the lease as well, and he would be paying half of the rent.
Was that your arrangement, Mr. Jones?
Correct.
Where were you working at the time, Miss Acree?
I was in and out of jobs. I was working through temp agencies.
So you weren't working steadily?
No.
And what about you, Mr. Jones?
I work for a county road and bridge department, 10, 12-hour days.
Steadily?
Yes,
How much were you earning, Mr. Jones?
$1,200 a month.
And how did you put your money into the rent?
Every 2 weeks I cash my check, and since she was home during the day, she would take care of the bills. I'd just give her money.
Is that right?
That is not correct, Your Honor.
Well, tell me how you were paying your bills if you weren't working full-time.
I was paying it through TANF, which is Temporary Aid for Families in Need, and that's what I get each month. And then
You get
I would
welfare?
get, yes.
Well, that's an easier term. Let me ask you this question, Miss Acree. Why in the world would I award you any money from Mr. Jones when the state was paying your rent?
Because he did not pay his share like he was supposed to.
That's not correct.
Okay. What happened in October?
October, he got physically violent with me, threw a cell phone at me, bruised me. I had to call 911 because this happened in front of my child.
So that was in October?
Yes.
October what?
October 10th.
You filed for protective order?
Yes.
What happened with that protective order?
That got dropped.
By whom? What do you mean
By
got
me.
dropped? You dropped it?
Yes.
Why?
Because of the fact that after he had been in jail, he had to go to domestic violence classes, and we went to court and everything. I figured everything was okay.
Did you let him back into the house?
I told him he could come back into the house, yes.
Did he come back into the house?
When? In December.
For how long?
Until I got evicted in February.
Did you stay with her in January and February?
No, I didn't. I moved out of our apartment on the 10th to my parents' house. And
10th of October?
Correct.
Were you put out by the police, Mr. Jones?
I was arrested there at the apartment.
How long did you stay in jail in October?
2 days.
Did you move back with Miss Acree?
No, ma'am.
You did not?
No, I live with my parents. And in November, she contacted my parents' church trying to borrow money to pay her rent, in which case my dad was contacted by the church because my name was on the lease as well.
And you asked for some money?
From a church, yes, I did.
Why?
Because of the fact I did not have enough money to pay the whole
Why did you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
Because at the time I did not have a steady job, but I
So
did
you didn't
after
have
that.
a job. Where are you working now?
Now I'm working at a gas station 40 hours a week.
When did you start this job?
A month ago.
And the previous job?
I had for a couple months until he got me fired from it.
Miss Acree, how long had you been receiving welfare to pay your rent?
For about a year.
Before you met him?
Yes.
So it wasn't because of him that you were in this financial position?
No, I was in school.
School to learn what?
Accounting.
And?
And I have a degree.
You have a degree in accounting and you're working at a gas station.
Yeah, I
Something
know.
doesn't balance out here, Miss Acree. Why don't you get a job with H&R Block instead of getting a job at a gas station?
Because I'd rather not work at H&R Block, but that's...
You'd rather work at a gas station. So what did you go to school for accounting for?
Because I wanted a degree.
Okay, let me hear about your counterclaim.
Okay, first off, not only did I pay her bills and her rent, she had a car payment that I was helping her out with, cell phone bills also. She worked for a month and a half through the 6 months we were together at that apartment. She also asked me for a loan of $150 to get a car stereo out of the pawn shop.
Which
so I
is
gave
not
her,
true.
So I gave her the $150.
When did you do that?
Do you have the month on that?
No. Don't ask her.
I don't know. I don't have that.
Your Honor, I have the proof right here that it was not $150 and he went with me to the pawn shop. It was $54.
What month?
In March.
March of what year?
This year, 2005.
What were you doing going to the pawn shop with him in March to get your stereo out of POC?
I got it out this year because of the fact that I had to put it in there to make the rest of a car payment.
What I don't understand is if you're not together with him, why do you call him to help you get something out of a pawn shop?
He was calling me, actually, and he asked me, he told me he didn't want me to lose it. And I said, okay, well, it's $54 to get it out. And he said, okay, let's go get it out.
How did you come to go with her to the pawn shop in March?
I didn't go through the pawn shop. She asked me to borrow money, as she has multiple times.
Then you shouldn't lend her money, Mr. Jones.
I'm a slow learner on that one, I guess.
Miss Acree, I don't believe he owes you a dime for rent. I believe that he worked. You did not. I believe that he contributed to the household. You did not. Now, if you had had a job all that
But
time...
I did. I worked at Kodak, and I worked...
Show me proof that you worked anywhere. Show me proof. You're not entitled to any money, Miss Acree. And Mr. Jones, have you learned your lesson?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Goodbye. Your counterclaim's dismissed.
Parties are excused and they step out.
Child care provider June 2 is suing ex-client Pat Meyer for unpaid babysitting fees and defamation of character. Pat claims June is running an unsafe daycare.
All rise. Yes, this is case number 100 on the calendar in the matter of 2 versus Meyer. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Miss Tu, you provided daycare for Miss Meyer's baby, child, toddler?
Yes, 4 years old at the time.
And it is your claim that she owes you some money. She owes you some money for daycare that you actually provided.
Right.
And then punitive damages because you claim that she defamed you. When, after you sued her for the money that she owed you in small claims court, she called the state and reported that your daycare facility was substandard.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the case is about. And Miss Meyer says she had every right to call the state with regard to the unsanitary and unsafe conditions in your house because that's why she removed her child from your daycare facility, and she doesn't owe you anything.
Yes.
When did you bring your 4-year-old to Miss Tu to babysit?
January 17th.
Of 05?
2005, yes, ma'am.
And how did you find her?
A co-worker of mine had her child in her care.
And she was satisfied?
Well, she worked late hours and she didn't have no other choice, ma'am.
Well, you wouldn't have put your child in a daycare facility unless you said to this co-worker of yours, are you satisfied?
Quite honestly, I was desperate to find a daycare. I just started at my job at the beginning of December, and I needed to have daycare. Since I just started, I was not financially free to pay $450 up front for other daycares.
So?
So I talked to her, and she said, well, go ahead and try it. Mrs. Chu talked to me. She said, right now I'm kind of full. I have too many children, but it's okay. I can take him. It's okay. I got myself in trouble before.
How many children did she have at the time?
I'm not sure. Like
You
I said,
didn't ask?
I wasn't in the daycare facility.
What do you mean you weren't in the facility?
We just kind of met at a stable and talked about stuff like this.
You met where?
At a stable. I was going to buy her a horse. That's how we met initially.
I thought you met initially through a coworker.
Yes, ma'am. The coworker has a horse. Miss Chu has a horse, and I wanted to purchase a horse. Her
You
horse
wanted
was
to
for
buy
sale.
a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't have $450 to pay up front for a daycare, and you wanted to buy a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain that to me.
I was looking into buying a horse. But
For what?
To ride, ma'am.
Keep going.
Like I said, I went to look for a daycare.
Now, Fred, last time you spoke to me, you were looking for a horse.
Yes, ma'am.
And
From
you
there
met her
we
at a
talked.
stable. And you hadn't been to the daycare facility yet. Stop
No,
playing
ma'am.
around with your hair.
I called her on a Saturday. I said, you know, I know you have a daycare. Is it possible for Jason to attend your daycare? She said, come on by on Monday. I went there, dropped him off.
Who had babysat for your son when you started working?
His godmother.
Well, what happened to her babysitting?
She had another job coming up that she was working, and she said she can't do it no more.
So you found her and you dropped him off without ever having seen the inside of the facility?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a husband?
Yes, ma'am.
What does he do for a living?
He's working in retail.
Did you end up buying her horse?
No, ma'am.
You have a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you buy it?
Late February.
How much did you pay for it?
$600.
Where do you keep it?
Sally Hill.
At a stable?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much do you pay to board the horse at the stable?
$225.
A month?
Yes, ma'am.
You got your priorities a little bit backwards, Miss Mayor. You got your priorities backwards. Before you take a horse, you find an appropriate daycare for your child. Not one where you don't have to pay up front. Because according to the figures that you just gave me, you had $600 to buy a horse and $225 to board the horse, and you didn't have $450 to pay for what you might consider an appropriate daycare up front. You have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
2.
How old are they?
15 and 10.
So you got a lot of extra money. Must have a lot of extra money if you have a horse. Oy. Now, I'm not getting into how many children you're licensed for. I'm not getting into any of that. Just tell me, how long have you been a daycare provider?
7 years.
When did she first bring her son into your daycare?
In January.
And how long did you take care of him?
She had him out for a week and Good Friday, and then she brought him back, and it was April 4th, and he was in my home April 4th and April 5th. And on April 5th, that was the last day that she brought him. So,
how much did she owe you when she took her son out on the 5th?
She owed me for the 28th week, and then she also owed me for that week that he was in my care, but she took him out.
Okay, let me see the contract that she signed. And it's $85 a week.
Yes, ma'am.
So she owes you, according to you, for 2 weeks.
She owes me for 2 weeks and then a 2 weeks notice, which is also in the contract because she quit without any kind of notice to me. She sent me a letter on 4/6 by certified mail saying, thank you for your services. Basically, I don't need you anymore.
Can I see the letter she
sent? And then I returned with another letter to her explaining what I was expecting of her at that time. And in all honesty, Judge, I wasn't going to do another thing with her because when you're a daycare, you are...
Right. I got it. But then she went and filed a complaint.
Right. And I've been in business a long time, and I am inspected by the state and the health department 6 months every year, and they have never had a problem with my home.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She was with me 5 months, or 4 months after that.
No, she wasn't.
Well,
listen to me. Okay. Don't be a fast talker. I don't like fast talkers.
And later today.
How old are you, Mr. Ingley?
I'll be 48 in 2 weeks.
And how old are you, Miss Murray?
I'm 25.
Okay.
You got to find friends your own age.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Child care provider June 2 says ex-client Pat Meyer owes for daycare fees and defamation of character as a result of filing false charges with the state. Pat claims June's parrot bit her son.
Go ahead.
Okay, the reason why we pulled Jason out of her care was because her macaw parrot bit Jason. He had the chance to walk across the dining room table, walk up his arm, and bite him because he wouldn't let go of his pretzel. I've got the pictures for it.
Okay.
And another child also bit him in the arm, and we just had enough.
When was the parrot bite?
6 months prior.
Just a second.
Oh.
When was the parrot bite?
It happened in March.
And what about the bite from the child?
The bite happened on the 5th of April. That's where we pulled him out.
Tell me about the bite.
The bite from the child?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and let me just notate, the bite from the bird was not a bite, and he was not on my dining room table.
I don't care where he was. Shouldn't have been around children.
But
shouldn't have been around children.
Okay. Well, I'll agree with that.
Good.
Okay. As far as the bite from the child,
But that didn't precipitate her removing the child from your care.
right?
'Cause
She
if
was
the-
with me 5 months or 4 months after that.
No, she wasn't.
Well-
Listen to me.
Okay.
Don't be a fast talker. I don't like fast talkers. Child started with you in January, February, and March. That's 3 months.
Correct.
So don't say it was 6 months before, because 6 months the child wasn't in your care.
That's true, but
Okay. But she still brought the child back after the incident with the bird, but did not want to return with the child almost immediately after the bite.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll explain that too.
Go ahead.
Okay. JJ was in my home, and that is why I brought my daughter today, because she's a witness to his behavior. And I have a little boy who is hearing impaired. And when the little boy came into the house that day, JJ immediately knocked him down. I mean, just pushed him down for no reason. I have basically 2 rooms, and each go into each other. And the next thing I know, the little boy who is hearing impaired comes running out of that room again because JJ pushed him down again. She didn't also tell you the story that her child punched that little boy in the face.
That day, on the 4th.
Yes, 5th.
On the 5th, the little boy retaliated by biting him.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what happened.
Where were you?
I was standing right there. And next thing I know, her son punched him, and he grabs his arm and bites him that quick. I mean, it happens so very quick.
Okay, fine. Now, mother, she's upset. Child was bitten by another child. Pulls the child out. Fine. You called the authorities? You called the authorities?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
I don't remember. I really don't. Maybe 2 weeks afterwards.
Why?
Because I don't feel that she's taken the care that she should by the daycare that she has for the children.
Well, why didn't you call the authorities the next day?
I took the day off Wednesday to find a new daycare, and
That doesn't answer my question.
I just didn't have the time.
Well, what inspired you to call 2 weeks later? When did you receive the small claims summons that she filed against you? All that's documented, so
yes,
you might as well...
I don't know the date.
But the phone call that you made to the authorities was after that?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
Now I'd like to see the report from the authorities when they came to do the inspection.
The first one's the dog catcher report, and the second one is the health inspector.
Who's taking care of your son now?
He's at home with his siblings and Mrs. Oliver again.
What did you do between the 6th of April and the 27th of May?
Oh, I'm sorry. He was in Koala Daycare.
How much did they charge you?
$95 a week.
And if you were unhappy with this Tuesday care, you could have put him in for an extra $10 a week to this other daycare.
I wasn't aware of that daycare at that time.
You should have been. If you spent a little more time choosing an appropriate daycare rather than shopping around for a horse, you could have been aware of the best daycare in your vicinity. I have, very little patience for somebody who spends any extra time on anything else when they have 3 children looking for quality daycare, which should be your first priority. First, not third, not second.
At that time, I was thinking I was doing the best I could by giving him
You don't
home
tell me
daycare.
the best you could. The best you could is, you just told me that everybody else wanted up front $450, and she didn't, so you chose her. And yet at the same time, you were looking for a horse, and you bought a horse for $600.
Yes, ma'am.
Same month.
No, ma'am, it was the end of February.
A month later.
Yes, ma'am.
She owes you $340 for the daycare.
Yes, ma'am.
She also owes you $300 because I believe she filed this in retaliation and nothing more for your filing a small claim summons against her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
When I turned around to put his jacket on, I noticed the injury on his neck, and I asked her what happened. And next thing, she pulls out this huge bird that's almost taller than my child.
My parrot is not.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Woodworth versus Rubio Robles. Step forward, please.
Tiffany Woodward is suing the parents of her son's friend, Reynaldo Rubio and Julia Robles, for the cost of the boy's glasses. Tiffany claims 11-year-old Ida Rubio smashed them.
Miss Woodworth, this is your son. He's
Yes,
7.
Yes, it is.
And Miss Robles, Mr. Rubio, this is your daughter. She's 11.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, these two young children play with each other. And for the third time, this little girl broke your son's eyeglasses.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you want Mr. Rubio and Miss Robles to pay for the glasses this
Yes.
time because you can't get him new glasses. Your insurance doesn't cover the cost. All right. Why don't you stand up there next to your mom and dad? Tell me your name.
Ida.
You want to come up here and talk to me?
Sure.
Good.
Thank you.
Is this young man your friend?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you remember the last time his glasses got broken?
No.
Don't know anything about how his glasses got broken.
The first other 2 times, I didn't know, but this time, I didn't break them.
Well, what happened this time?
We were playing, and
Look at me.
We were playing, and he would call me names, and I would tell him names back. He pushed me, and so I pushed him back. He had hit the brick wall, and his glasses had fell. I think he stepped on them, or the lens popped out by himself, because I didn't step on them.
Okay. You can go back down.
Okay.
Okay, William. Hello.
Hi.
Is Ida your friend?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how your glasses got broken.
Ida, she pushed me.
Ida pushed you.
Yeah.
Did you
Then-
call? Just a second.
Then, I pushed her back. Then she pushed me against the brick wall. Then they fell and then she stomped on them.
Were you calling her any names?
I only called her the B word, that's it.
You only called her the B word, that's it? Well, is that a nice name, William?
Nope.
Why did you call her a nasty name?
Because she called me the F word.
Who called who a name first?
Ida. She called
Ida
me
called-
a name first.
So after Ida called you a name, and then you called her a name, who pushed who first?
Ida, she pushed me first.
And then you pushed her back?
Then she pushed me again. Then they fell off my face and she stomped on them.
You've had a couple of pair of glasses break before, is that right, William?
It's not 3, it's 4. It's 4 times she did it.
How did she do it?
Because the last 3 times she punched me in the face and broke him in half. Then the last time she stomped on him.
But you keep playing with Ida. How come?
I don't know. We just keep on fighting them friends.
First you fight and then you're friends again?
Yeah, every time.
Why don't you go and sit down over there? The first couple of times that William told you that Ida had broken his glasses, did you call her parents?
I lived right next to them. I spoke with them.
Did Mrs. Woodworth speak to you about what happened with Ida?
I don't even recall the first 2 times. I don't remember.
Well, then if she says it happened and you say you don't remember, then it happened.
Well, do you remember?
It never was brought up to my attention about breaking glasses.
What did you tell them?
Well, my husband and I had both asked you if you would speak to Ida, and you guys had spoke to her. You know, my husband and I understand kids will be kids, but after so many times, I can't afford to pay for them, and the insurance won't cover for them anymore.
I got it. Now, Ida, I'm going to see you back here again. right here. Ida, you know what my job is?
Yeah.
What do you think my job is? Come on. You're 11 years old. You know, you're a big girl.
Yeah, but I don't really.
Well, my job is to make sure that I find out what the truth is. That's my job. And I don't think that you've told me the whole truth, Ida. And I've been a judge a very long time. So when you come to court, and Officer Byrd says to you, pick up your hand and you swear to tell the truth, and you say yes, you have to tell the truth. Not stories that you've told your parents, not stories that you told anybody else, but when you're in court, you have to tell the truth. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Now, it's my job to figure out if people tell the truth. And I think he's telling me the truth. I think that you've broken his glasses a couple of times. Is there any reason why you did that? Look at me. Don't look over there. Look at me. Is there any reason why you broke his glasses a couple of times?
Yes, because he gets me mad. He'll call me names and stuff like that.
Well, he can call you names, and do you call him names?
Yes.
Does he break things of yours?
No.
Then why do you break his glasses? Because you get mad?
Well, he'd push me and I'd push him back, but they never broke. Because I never hit him in the face.
Did you ever take off his glasses and break them in two?
No. They could fall and the lint could pop out, or they can accidentally get stepped on if they fall.
They can accidentally get stepped on. They can also get stepped on purpose. You could accidentally step on them, right?
Right.
Go back to your parents. Mrs. Robles, your husband clearly doesn't recall being spoken to by Miss Woodworth about your daughter. You claim not to recall. So I credit her testimony that she did, in fact, speak to you in the past. And I believe that your daughter broke his glasses and stepped on them just as he said that he did. His testimony was direct and straightforward and honest, that they were calling each other names, they pushed each other. Well, that's possible, and once he gets pushed and she gets pushed, I don't have a problem with that, even though kids aren't supposed to touch each other. But I believe him when he says that once the glasses fell off, she stomped on them because she got mad. She's not telling me the truth. And she didn't tell you the truth if that's what she told you.
So the first two times you believe that she broke them in half?
I believe that she broke his glasses before.
Oh, okay.
And I believe that his mother spoke to you about it before. You may not remember.
I don't recall that.
The glasses are $160?
Yes, they are.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $160. I'd have a discussion with her. She's got to learn about truth-telling. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Bye.